It is a Hump Day Wednesday, and typically this time of year, admittedly, you feel like it's not the case, but you feel like the news cycle from a sports standpoint slows down a little bit, but not the case at all because we've got a jam-packed show today. Jam-packed. We have Josh Downs of the Indianapolis Colts going to join us about 15 minutes from now. We have Joel Erickson that will be joining us after the Colts, or actually in between kind of sessions that they're doing here as they have sessions going on West 56th. And then at 2 o'clock, Mario Andretti will join us, and we will get to that reasoning why Mario is going to join us again on the program coming up in just a minute. But before we do so, my name is Jake Query. This is Query & Company here on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan, how are you? Hope you're enjoying a good start to this first week in June. Eddie Garrison is the guy flying the controls for us today.
Hello.
That's him you hear. Usually you hear Eddie in the background either typing or eating ketchup potato chips, right?
Sure. Typing for sure.
Are you out of the chips?
No.
Oh,
I'm well, Jake. How are you?
that's good willpower.
You having a good Wednesday?
Not bad.
Are you trying to dodge the question about the ketchup Lays?
No,
They're
he
great.
opened the show and said, "Hi, how are you?" I am answering his question. I'm well.
I was
I was
asking
curious
that
how
to
he
the
was doing.
company.
I'm
Even
part
though-
of the company, am I not?
Well, you're CEO. You look you're above. You're a pillar above.
So does that not mean I can tell you how I'm doing and ask how you're doing?
We usually try to keep you in meetings.
I'm genuinely concerned how the listeners are doing, Eddie. My concern for how you're doing, tempered compared to that.
What if I'm concerned about how you're doing and I just answer that question to figure out how you're actually doing?
Jake actually has a test that he does every day to figure out how you're doing, Eddie. It depends if it is a Dunkin' cup or a chai tea over on the other
That's
side.
right.
Of
What do we have over there today?
I've got water.
Okay.
is it a Dunkin'
It is a Dunkin'
cup though?
cup.
Okay.
It is.
All right. Okay.
Jimmy Cook, of course, also the president of the company. How are you, Jimmy?
I'm
Everything
doing
going
great.
all right?
Yeah, everything's good. If you want to peek behind the curtain, had the usual yearly doctor visit. All good. All 2 thumbs up. So I'm
Now,
rolling
wait a minute.
today.
For yourself or for
For me. Sorry.
Okay.
Selfishly for me.
Now, just out of curiosity, I'm hoping that during the one dreaded part of it, the 2 thumbs up were still, the 2 thumbs were both still up, right?
Well, Derek Schultz knows a guy, so
That's
that's
right.
It's a deep cut.
Did you have to do blood?
I did blood work in preparation for this appointment.
Boy.
Like a month or so
You
ago.
guys will know when I have to get blood because I don't sleep the day before. I come in, if I've got a Band-Aid on and I'm tired, it's because I don't do the needles well.
Somehow,
What's different than any other day?
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
somehow lost through my life, I had never had blood work done. I don't know how that happened. It just fell through the cracks of I changed doctors at one point. It's never happened, so I had it done for the first time 2 months ago, and it was more pleasant than I thought it was going to be. I'm always worried they're going to miss the vein.
I
and have
know.
to,
Well, I'm one of those though that they like to congratulate me about the buoyancy of my veins, and I'm like, can we just get to it here? They're like calling people in. Look, you've got to see this guy's veins. Look at him. It's amazing, and they're pushing on it, and I'm like, can we just do this, please?
And that's after the autograph and the pictures
That's
they
right.
want beforehand.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, that goes without saying. I sign in blood for that matter. Again, Josh Downs going to join us just about 10 minutes from now. One of the storylines that we're going to discuss, and we'll get more into this probably coming up in the back half of the hour, and I certainly am aware of the fact that, and it's a very surreal thing. It's a very surreal thing just when you do get older and people that you've known about in the world of sports or known their name your entire existence, when they pass, it is a surreal reminder of just the movement of life. But yesterday, obviously, I think most know, and for those that don't know, then I'm honored for the brief opportunity to let you know about Parnelli Jones. And Parnelli Jones passed away yesterday at the age of 90 in California. Parnelli Jones, of course, the winner of the 1963 Indianapolis 500. But one of the most dominant drivers in Indy history. He raced in 7 Indy 500s. He led in 5 of those 7. He probably should have won multiple years, including in 1967 when he drove in the revolutionary turbine engine car for Andy Granatelli and STP, and the people still talk about that car and how dominant it was. He led 171 laps. He broke an inexpensive part with like 3 laps to go that cost him a second win. He dominated as well in 62. In 1961, he was the first driver to qualify at 150 miles an hour. But Parnelli Jones, in addition to that, was an innovator, not just in terms of his driving, but also in the expansive level in which he drove, because he drove so many different kinds of cars. I mean, he drove in USAC. He drove the Baja was a huge thing for him. And he became an owner as well. He owned the car that Al Unser won in, the Johnny Lightning Special. He obviously owned the first car that Mario Andretti ran in Formula One. And it was admittedly, to me yesterday, sad, quite frankly. It was sad because, not just because Parnelli passed, and I didn't know Parnelli Jones well. I mean, I had the pleasure of meeting him and interviewing him. That's inconsequential here. But it was a reminder to me just about life in general, because when Parnelli passed, my first thought was to my friend Steve Shunk, who's the friend of basically everyone in racing, but Steve Shunk is the public relations director, has worked in racing in a number of capacities, but most recently has been working for Borg Warner. And Steve Shunk was absolutely loyal and vice versa to Parnelli, and they had a very close and special friendship and relationship. And I thought about Shunk because Steve Shunk was also super tight with and probably the best friend of Robin Miller. And Robin was the first name that I thought about having on the show. Like, hey, who do we need to get on to talk about Parnelli? And I thought of Robin Miller, and of course Robin has passed. I thought about like just the Indy 500 in general. It made me think of Bob Jenkins, who we've lost. And, those things, it was sad, quite frankly. And then I thought, you know what? I know that in interviewing Parnelli Jones, he had talked about his level of respect for Mario Andretti. And I know that Mario Andretti drove cars that were owned by Parnelli Jones. And the two of them were on-track rivals in the early years of Mario's career. And so I reached out to see if Mario could come on to talk about Parnelli Jones. And not only did Mario agree to do so, but earlier today, just about an hour ago or so, Mario Andretti sent a tweet saying, at 2 o'clock, I'm going to talk about Parnelli Jones, and I have great stories to tell about him. Essentially, a lifelong friendship, and there are so many stories, is actually what he said, so many stories. So I am very honored that Mario would agree to do that, and I don't know that he has issued statement yet. Roger Penske issued a statement. Doug Bowles issued a statement. I mean, there have been several people who have commented about the passing of Parnelli Jones, but he was born Rufus Jones. His middle name is Parnell. This is a well-documented story by now, but when he was 17 years old, he wanted to get into racing. You had to be 18 to do so. So he doctored his paperwork, but was afraid that if it said Parnell Jones, that people would know who it was, or if it said Rufus, because his name was so unusual, they would know who it was. So he had a girl in school named Nellie that a friend of his claimed that he had a crush on. So his friend said, instead of Parnell, we'll call you Parnelli. And that's what they put on the side of the car when he was 17 and began racing. And because his name was Parnelli Jones, Mario and Aldo Andretti, as young men, when they first came to the United States from Italy, thought he was Italian. So that's who they selected as their favorite driver, and their friendship began. So Mario will join us at 2 o'clock to talk about that. But Parnelli Jones he personified everything about the Indianapolis 500, because he experienced triumph here, he experienced heartache here, but through all of it, he respected the venue and the event as being larger than Parnelli, even though Parnelli was one of the pillars of it. And his humility and his determination year in and year out encapsulate the Indianapolis 500 and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway as much as any man or woman who has raced there. He led 43.5% of the laps that he turned at Indianapolis. He is the 8th all-time lap leader in 500 history. He was the 3rd all-time lap leader at the time of his retirement. So we will talk about him today, but also Mario Andretti at 2 o'clock going to join us. Eddie, in terms of what the Colts are doing out on West 56th Street, schedule getting busy again, even though it's the quote-unquote off-season for them, correct?
Correct. So they had practice yesterday. It was their first of 3 consecutive practices for mandatory minicamp. Today will be day number 2, and they will wrap things up tomorrow for day 3, and then they're off. I think Shane Steichen said yesterday it's about 5.5 weeks, and then they come back for training camp, and things will be rolling along from Grand Park there until the start of the regular season.
The NFL is so good at just teasing you, just giving you little sprinkles of, oh man, how they doing at mandatory minicamp. And then it'll go away for a second. It's like, all right, they're taking the summer break, and then you'll blink twice, and training camp will be here. And they'll be counting down until preseason games arrive. And then ultimately the start of the regular season. And we're going to talk about this a lot this summer as things unfold, and it'll be interesting to get Josh Downs' perspective come up here in a couple minutes leading into year 2 for him, because it's such a big year, not just for Anthony Richardson, not just for maybe finally seeing the dynamic play of a Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson dominated offense. What is this receiving core able to do with the quarterback that they've been promised for going on 2 years now? And for some of this receiving room, not Downs, but guys like Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman Jr., those that have been a part of the franchise for multiple years now, you're finally waiting for that quarterback that was promised to be able to set you up for further success in your career and help you win games. Big year for Anthony Richardson, but big year for this receiving core. And a lot of it, maybe not necessarily all of it, but a lot of the ease of development that we've asked for with Anthony Richardson is going to come from guys like Josh Downs in year 2 taking another leap forward.
He was – I thought Josh Downs last year might have been their most is the wrong word. I'm sorry. But if you grade it on the rookie scale, his level of reliability and consistency was like literally the found $10 bill in your pocket when you're doing laundry, right? I mean, clearly they have a player here. There's a reason why Reggie Wayne was so high on him during the draft process. But I thought he was just an extremely reliable safety net player, right? And now you go, the question, I guess, one of the first things I'll ask him is, how does it change, Jimmy, when you have different people throwing you the football? And I realize that it's not like he never played with Anthony Richardson. But when he's getting his feet underneath him in the NFL, he's got a different guy throwing to him, right?
And he was last year, Jake, I mean, in a lot of categories, not touchdowns, which we can get into that in terms of the quarterback play at the time and it being Minshew and the Colts doing the best they could, but them not being as high-level scoring offensively as you would like them to be for a rookie to be top 45. And I know when I say that number, that sounds like, oh, that's not very good, but that's total wide receivers in the NFL. So you're talking about your wide receiver 1s, your wide receiver 2s, your wide receiver 3s across the board in the league. He was 42nd in catches and a tie for that. He was 45th in yards. Like, he had a really good rookie season.
Set the franchise record for receptions in a rookie year.
Sure. And that goes to, to Eddie's point there about the rookie mark, but also, Jake, to your point, I don't know that most is the craziest word, because Michael Pittman Jr., is a mainstay in the pass catching, so you don't want to say most maybe to undercut Pitt, but in terms of most reliable or maybe most impressive, because it kind of came out of nowhere because you didn't expect as much from the rookie class once Richardson goes down, because how's it going to be working with Minshew? Where will the learning curve be there? Will it be harder for a rookie to learn the offense? And he's still just a pleasant surprise throughout the entirety of that season.
Well, and again, you often see, and maybe you had a little of this, I'd have to look at the game by games, but, rookies do hit periods where they kind of hit that wall or defense is kind of figuring them out a little bit. And it seems like he was a guy that he was consistent in terms of his availability, if you will, over the course of the year. Now, the numbers may say different than that to me, than what I'm saying. But doesn't it feel like he was one that you just kind of knew he was a safety net guy, right? I mean, he was a reliable, like, I think this guy's going to be able to make plays on a regular basis, and you felt good about having him there, right?
Once you got past November, once you got into the final 6, 7, 8, 9 games of the season, he only had fewer than 3 targets one time. Like, he was always counted on throughout the offensive game plan and delivered multiple times last year.
And he joins us now, by the way, on the CarX guest line. Josh Downs, wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts, now entering his second year. And Josh, appreciate the time. I know it's a busy time. I'll get right to the first question, which is, this feels different for you than entering your rookie year in what way?
For me, different. Well, last year I was first off coming off of a little knee issue, so I wasn't even doing OTAs last year at this time. So, for one, blessed to be healthy and being able to participate in these team activities, and then two, just like you said, different, going into a bigger role, knowing the coaches better, knowing my quarterback better. They trusted me more, me trusting myself more. So, more so feeling myself out this year. Pitt's not out there right now, but AD's making good strides. We got dudes like DJ Montgomery playing well, Anthony Gould. So, we all basically year two in this offense, a lot of us, and you can just see it out there when we play.
Josh, at what point last year did you feel confident in your knowledge of the playbook? A lot of times rookies will say, especially at the wide receiver position, that the complexity combined with the nuance of life at wideout in the NFL can take a little bit of a learning curve for rookies to grasp. At what point did you feel like that you had the proper knowledge base of Shane Steichen's offense, and how has having that now down pat helped you in the offseason's early goings as you prepare for year two?
Yeah, so I got a pretty good photographic memory. So last year I would say early camp is when I really just I wasn't thinking twice about plays. I was more so just flowing with the playbook. But now there's no hesitation at all. It's more so I hear the play call, hear the formation, and now I'm on to how am I going to get open on this play? How am I going to run this route? I'm not more so what's my split? What's my route? I'm focused on what the defense going to do at this point. So I'd say, yeah, like I said, I was hurt last OTA, so all I was doing was studying more than anything. I wasn't worried about the on-field activities or what's going on here or there. I'm literally just studying the playbook. So I got ahead with that even though I was hurt. And then when camp came around, I was able to go out there and physically do it, so that just helped me even more.
Now, hang on. Did you say you have a photographic memory?
Yeah. So I really I do since I was a kid. I swear when I would take like social studies classes, those type of classes, you just see it once and then you can you know what it is. I would literally look at the board. I take no notes and I'm getting 95s on the test.
So in other words, now let me ask you, Josh, because I find this fascinating. Do you have to see something in order? So in other words, it's almost like you literally take the image stays in your mind and you can recall it up and reread it, or if you hear something, do you also lock it in and remember it?
So if I see it, I remember it better than when I hear it. But if I see it and I hear it, then it's locked in for sure. Then it's okay. We went over a play yesterday for the first time, and it was a play that could be flipped either way, and it was an empty formation. And I remembered all 5 routes, and I could draw it up if you need me to, because somebody was asking me oh, I forgot to play, blah, blah, blah. I can draw it up if you need me to, but then they just pulled it up on the board. But basically, if I see it and I hear it, I definitely am going to remember it. But if I see it, I definitely remember it more.
I'm going to give you 4 things right now, and I want you to picture them in your head. And then at the end of the interview, I'm going to ask you to repeat the 4. Are you ready? You got to picture these in your mind, and no writing it down and cheating. Alligator. Okay, here we go. Alligator, boat, watch, truck. I'm going to say it a second time. Alligator, boat, watch, truck.
All right.
Okay? No writing it down. Okay.
I'm a little disappointed you didn't throw an on-to in there, but that's fine.
That's right.
Neither here nor there.
Josh, we were talking about this. Anthony Richardson, there's obviously that's the focal point of discussion when it comes to the Colts in this season. I think you know that. But last year and you played with him, I get it. But you also got into rhythm and you really got your footing as a rookie wide receiver with Gardner Minshew throwing you passes.
Yeah.
Now having a different guy in there that's throwing you on the routine. Is it different? Are timing, anticipation, those things different depending on who it is throwing you the ball?
Yeah, different quarterbacks, different timing, different looks. Gardner's a vet. He's an excellent player. The Raiders are lucky to have him. But, AR is back. Very talented, arguably most potential in the league out of anybody. AR back there. It brings a different type of dynamic to the offense. We can run, pass, RPO, all that stuff. And AR, his arm very strong. Like I'm year 2. AR, he is year 2 because he was here last year as well. So he's getting more comfortable with the offense too. And I mean that helps a lot. And I mean we're clicking right now. And you're seeing it out there. AR, he's comfortable. But I would say like it's still functioning. The offense is still functioning. If not as good, better than it was last year.
When you read and or listen to or whatever it may be, and I know you're going to say, well, we don't pay attention to that stuff, but when you see just the conversations around Anthony Richardson from, radio, television, those kinds of things, even other other former players, tell me something about Anthony Richardson in his ability or what he does that you feel like other people haven't noticed, where you say to yourself, gosh, they're missing out on the big thing here. Why is no one talking about the fact that this is what makes him special? That thing that you have noticed is what?
I can't pinpoint a certain thing, but I just know he's a real gamer. He's not a type of guy that's just gonna like coach says, hey, throw it over here. He's not just gonna do that. He's gonna find his own sauce, and he's gonna find a way to make it work himself. And he wants the big play, but he also will take the play that's needed if we need a first down or something like that. So like a lot of people are like, oh, he's a very athletic, strong arm, yada yada yada. But like a lot of people, like he's a real gamer. Like he's out there like trying to we're trying to cook. He's not just out there like looking at the script and like, okay, I know that I'm supposed to go here, so I'm gonna go there. He's looking like, okay, I'm trying to make the play that's going to get us a spark right here. So he's a real gamer.
You mentioned Josh Downs is our guest, Colts wide receiver, entering his second season with the Colts. You had mentioned that and I'm not going to play Jake's game. I'm not going to have words for you to remember, but you mentioned the photographic memory and you mentioned the ability to know a 4 or 5 route tree concept and rewrite it. And that's where your brain's at now in terms of processing things. And you're no longer just worried about what the play is. You're focused to this point on, okay, I know what my job is, but also I know secondarily how to get opened, or if a play breaks down, how to look for a way to help your quarterback and Anthony Richardson. And a lot of great wide receiver quarterback combos, it's almost like they're in a different realm of reality almost, because you have the play that says you to go one way, and then all of a sudden pressure is arriving on Anthony, and you need to find a way to get open, and it's like, oh man, how did he find that window? How were they on the same plane? How long does that type of connection take to develop between quarterback and wide receiver?
I would just say like more so just a feel for the game. There's no timetable on when it will happen. I played with great quarterbacks in college, Drake May and Sam Howell. So I mean it was a similar thing with them. As AR, but it's not really a timing thing. It's more so just like when it happens, it happens. But that also comes with building chemistry off the field, because you can't just be like basically co-workers with your quarterback as a receiver. Like, you got to be genuine friends. You got to really like care for each other and like really be friends. You got to be brothers. So I feel like that's a big aspect that a lot of people don't talk about as well. Like when you have a quarterback as a receiver, you got to be able to hang out with that quarterback off the field. Like, hey, let's go get some dinner. Let's cool it. Let's chill. Like stuff like that.
Have you guys done any of that? Is there a good team group chat? Any fun activities planned for once mandatory camp's over? You guys got a little bit of time off to, like you mentioned, either go your separate ways or hang out, build camaraderie before training camp goes. Any plans in the future once mandatory minicamp's done?
Yeah, we got some stuff planned. We talked about some stuff, so we definitely gonna get together in these next 6 weeks. We're not just gonna hang it up and just completely cut communication. We're gonna get together a few times for sure.
The wide receiver room is more crowded than it was a year ago. And hey, you're the veteran of it now, right? Or one of them.
Yeah.
Your assessment, your thoughts on some of the guys around you and the competition at the position.
Yeah, very good competition. A lot of really good players, like you said. We just brought Adonai in and Anthony Gould. And then we have Alec Pierce still here, Michael Pittman. And then you got guys that are balling like DJ Montgomery, Jawan Winfrey, Tyree Cleveland, Ethan Fernier. So you got a lot of people in the room that are there to make plays. And it makes all of us better because, you can't have everybody has bad days, but you can't have a bad day mentally. You can't have a bad day effort-wise. You got to go out there and give 100%.
Do you like to, when you think of yourself, Josh Downs, our guest, the Indianapolis Colts wide receiver, when you envision yourself, Josh, on the field and you're sitting there daydreaming about a play, do you envision yourself more and fancy yourself more as a behind-the-defense deep ball threat receiver, or the find an opening, slithery, kind of slippery bailout? I'm not going to say possession receiver, but when the play's breaking down, the guy that you know Anthony Richardson can find and you're going to make a play. Which is the one that you kind of fancy yourself more as your calling card?
Everybody has their own role, and I feel like I can mix it up in my game. I can go deep if I have to. I can go middle of the field. But, yeah, like you said, like I'm a guy that it's 3rd and 7. I want them to be like the ball coming to Uno because it's money down, and we need a play, so let's go to him. So I feel like for me, I like to envision myself like that, a guy that 3rd down, okay, we coming to him. We know that he can make a play, or like you said, scramble drill, big play, 50 yards, stuff like that. And then when it is a deep shot, call my name. I can still do that too. So I feel like for me, it just depends. Like I don't have a certain thing that I'm just like, oh, I got to do this more than that. It's like I want to have an all-around game, but sometimes I find myself definitely being the 3rd down guy, which is cool with me, though, because that's the money down.
Josh, nobody likes losing. Doesn't matter if it's in sport, if it's in life. It's not a good feeling. How long did it take to flush the loss to Houston that kept you guys out of the playoffs? And as you look ahead to this year, how far away is this group from the postseason?
Not far at all. 20 yards away. You feel me? We're not far. We actually we're closer right now than we were last year at this time, 100%. But yeah, to flush the loss, different for everybody. You know, everybody got their own mental type of thoughts and all that stuff. But I would say for me, it's not like everybody still remember that game. Everybody still remembers that we could have went to the playoff if we win that game, win the division. So it's not like everybody just forgot about it. We know what happened, and we know what's at stake now because, our whole division is really pretty much stacked. And, Houston's been getting a lot of hype. We love it because we love it. We want that. We love to see that hype for them so that when we play them, we can beat them.
By the way, Josh, you played at North Carolina, obviously. Your dad played and coached, if I'm not mistaken, at North Carolina State. North Carolina State made the final.
He played there.
What's that?
He played at NC State. He didn't coach there.
Okay, so he played at NC State. And then NC State goes to the Final Four. They play Purdue. You play in Indiana. It's the same state as Purdue. How many conflicts of interest there? Were you rooting for North Carolina State or were you rooting for Purdue?
I'm definitely rooting for NC State. I can't lie.
All right, fair enough. Okay, Josh, here we go. The 4 words are?
Alligator, boat, truck, and what is alligator, boat, truck, and watch.
Dang, there we go. There we go.
Well done.
Now, you inverted the order on watch and truck, but you have bigger things on your mind, so you get a free pass there, right? we let you off the hook.
And he didn't see it.
And you didn't write it down. I like that.
Sure.
You didn't cheat either. Absolutely outstanding. Josh, best of luck on a big season. We appreciate the time. Josh Downs, the wide receiver, Indianapolis Colts, joining us on the program. That's pretty impressive, Jimmy,
It was.
right?
It was very impressive.
Eddie, did you hang up on Josh?
No, the line just, I don't know what's going on with it, actually.
Well, hopefully it was just a minor.
It's got a little icon on our computer I've never seen before. Have
Me
you ever
either.
seen that little icon?
No.
All of a sudden I hope he's not still hanging on the line and he's wondering what's going on. Josh, if you're still listening to us, you can get back to practice. We appreciate the time. But we're not sure what happened.
I had
The way things go here.
I had alligator and truck. I lost the other two.
Really?
So, yeah.
I thought watch was the easy
Wow.
one. What about boat? Did you have it, Eddie?
I had it all in order.
Look at
Okay,
you.
well,
I have a really good memory, too.
Well, you look at the big brain on Eddie.
That's right.
Goes without saying. Goes without saying.
those size 15s don't work. Don't take days off.
See, this is beautiful. I think he's calling back. How about this no, we're going to check here because Eddie's wrapping us, right? He's jumping rope, wrapping us. The call strangely dropped, and then it looks like Josh is actually calling back.
What do you think? Eddie puts him back on? Or you think Eddie sends
That's
him
a
on
good
his way?
question. We'll see what Eddie's saying to him. Sure, why not? Yeah. Eddie says, do you want him back? Josh, we're
All right,
congratulating you and thank you for calling back, by the way. Now that right there, let me tell you something. That's a pro's pro right there. We have no idea what happened with our phone lines, but you got 3 out of the 4, but the order is incorrect. Now, if you were in social studies class, would they have given you still a 95 on that? You got all 4, I'm saying, but your order was incorrect.
But if it was a question like name the events in chronological order, then nah, I would probably got like a 75. But if they tell me if they just tell me to name the 4, then I'm good.
That was pretty impressive. Alligator boat watch and truck. Lastly, since you called back, and I appreciate it, give me just kind of, for folks that don't know, which might include me for that matter, take me through like what the day looks like right now when the team is together, what exactly it is that you guys are doing from the time that you arrive at the complex to the time you're done, and just what your week looks like.
Yeah, so basically meetings, walkthrough, lift, practice, meetings. That's basically what we do all day. And it'll be like 9 to 6. So we here pretty much like 9 hours of the day. We working. So a lot of people are like, oh, well, football, it's a dream job. Of course, it's a blessing. Love it, but you definitely got to put in the time. It's a 9 to 6. It's a long day. It's not something short. But we getting the work in for sure.
Is it hard to remind yourself that when you're going to be lining up in November in a game where things are on the line, that maybe something that you learned or went through or got down pat in June is coming into play? Do you have to consistently remind yourself of that?
Yeah, you just got to put in work, honestly. I mean, you just got to get better, compete with the guys in front of you, and just get better every single day because just like if you was working in an offseason program, we working here, like it's practice. So, yeah, this is definitely going to affect September, October, December, all that because you putting in work now. That's the work that's going to show.
You know, Jimmy, if you work hard enough, you too can get yourself a truck to haul your boat so that you can wear your alligator skin band on your new watch, right?
That's the dream, I think.
That's the dream right there. That's right, Josh. That's how you can remember it. We'll let you get back to work. I appreciate you calling back, by the way. Pro on that move, and we very much appreciate it. And, look, we'll have you back on because I love having you on, and we look forward to talking to you again over the course of the season.
Yes, sir. Thank you. You have a good day.
I appreciate it. Josh Downs of the Indianapolis Colts. Good stuff right there.
Yeah, tip of the cap for the callback. I did appreciate that. Very nice of him.
Of course, you could also just buy a Lacoste watch, which would have an alligator on it, and therefore you're not harming an animal.
I could just borrow one of yours because you have, like, enough to fill the libraries of Alexandria. You know what I mean?
I do have, I think it's 23 now. I almost bought, when I was in Detroit, I almost bought a Shinola watch because they're made in Detroit, and you don't know blank from Shinola. But I really did think about doing it because I can appreciate the city of Detroit and the fact that we go there every year for the race and they sponsor the race. So I thought it'd be cool to buy a Shinola watch, but I ended up not.
Did you know that you followed me?
I'm maturing.
You followed me on vacation because on the cruise ship, and I don't know why they do this. Maybe people just feel like, oh, I'm going to go ahead and spend more money now that I'm on the ship. But they have shops, and there's an exclusive watch shop right there.
Really?
I thought of you the whole time.
On the cruise ship?
Yeah, because there's like there's like a purse store and like a makeup store, and then there were some watches.
I know Eddie's going to tell us we're up against it, but let me tell you something with that haunts me to this day. All right. I'll tell you on the other side.
Summer weather is finally here.
Reminder, the Fan on the Back Nine Golf Tournament, presented by Franciscan Health. Going to be Thursday, July 18th at Back Nine, which is fantastic, right just south of downtown. Good views of downtown. Great food and drink there, and going to be golfing starting at noon on that day, July the 18th, with everything getting underway at 11 o'clock. We will be there broadcasting, so too will JMV, live on location. This is going to be rain or shine, of course. Tickets are on sale now. You can get yourself out there individually, or you can buy a bay with a group, and there will be food served. There will be drinks there as well.
There'll be a silent auction as well, Jake.
A silent auction?
That is correct. And I believe all the proceeds go to Franciscan Health.
Wonder if they'll have any watches. When, short of it, Jimmy, you talked about, and there's something about international travel where they're big on watch. I mean, it must be like the duty-free deal.
Yes, exactly what it was.
I was coming back from a vacation, and we were in the duty-free section of the airport. And I went into a store, and there before me was a watch. And I was like, I sat there for a long time looking at this watch, and I'm like, and I was so close to pulling the trigger on it. And, more often than not, I don't know if you guys have been in this situation, but when you have something that you're going to purchase like that, like even like an impulse buy or a pseudo impulse buy, and you say to yourself, okay, if I don't buy this, I'm probably after tomorrow never going to think of, you know what I mean? Like whatever, like I'll just move along, and I'll live another day without it and won't even think the difference of it. The price on this particular watch was, I couldn't believe the price. It was a really good price. And, of course, it's duty-free, so there's no tax on it. And I'm just sitting there looking at it. And I think I even said to Shannon, like, I think I might just do this. And she's like, yeah, okay. And she wandered off to go get, like, chocolates, I think. And finally, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to walk away. So I walked away. I have literally thought about that watch once a week ever since. I have never let go of the fact that I didn't buy it. It's haunted me. So,
and this was how long ago?
This was in 2019.
Wow.
So last year,
5 years,
we were again in a situation where I was in a duty free, and I went into not the same store because it's a different airport, but the same company, the same manufacturer.
Uh-huh.
And I walked in, and I'm like, and I said to myself, okay, this time, because now I'd like, now it was an impulse. I actually had put okay, so I went in there, and I'm like, if they have it, I'm buying it. I walk in, I'm walking around, and I'm like, I don't see it anywhere. And I asked the clerk, and she says, oh, no. We have no inventory at all. And I'm like, well, why are you open? Well, in case you wanted to look and reserve order something, but it takes right now about 2 years before it would arrive. And the price was like tripled. And I'm like, okay. Lesson learned.
This feels like a where do you see yourselves in 5 years exercise, but with this watch and
I'm
stuff.
telling you, like, it has haunted me. But, listen, it's not like my life is different because I didn't buy it. Don't
Sure.
get me wrong. But there you go.
We won't think less of you here in the company. I think I speak for all the company when I say that, Jake.
Well,
No.
That's probably hard to do.
Oh,
So.
I don't speak for Eddie, apparently. Sorry, Eddie is
You
gonna
never speak
less
for
of
me.
you.
It's okay. Yeah.
Have you seen what the NFL, in terms of the NFLPA, Kevin Bowen, our colleague, who is, of course, out with the Colts right now, Ryan Kelly is talking, and Ryan Kelly is the NFLPA representative for the Colts. And one of the things that has been discussed, and I think is probably at this point we can say is inevitable, is the increased schedule for the NFL season and number of games. And now they are talking an 18-game schedule. And Ryan Kelly has said, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And I think that he probably represents a lot of players in that regard because of the physical toll on the body. But the question is it something that is inevitably going to happen? And is there a risk that comes with it beyond just player health? We'll get into that next.
Today, filing for Social Security is
almost embarrassed to ask this because it sounds so absurd. But if the NFL moves to an 18-game season, and then ultimately I think their ceiling would be that they'd like to get to a 20-game. I understand from the owner's standpoint why they do it. And I think the NFL is the juggernaut. I mean, NFL Sundays are a rite of passage in the U.S., no question. Question I have for you guys, and I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit. I'm not, but I don't know. Do you think that there is the possibility that the reason the NFL is so massive is because it's, it was, and I know we're just talking a one-game difference here, but every game matters. It's, that there's only so many of them, and so therefore, you've got to go to, there's only 8 home games, and, there's so many things that go into play. If they continue to grow the schedule and ultimately get it to a 20-game schedule, if they went that far with it, is there any chance that it starts to dilute in the calendar the product where it loses some of that and there's a fatigue?
I don't think so, provided that you're not adding days to the calendar any further than you already are. And what I mean by that is not like literal game days. I mean days of the week that you're occupying. I feel like if you're still spreading it out, and the running joke in the league the last 3 years has been, Tuesday night football, Wednesday night football, just have it every day of the week. I think that is where you run into a danger of fatigue, because at that point it's like, there's so much football every single day. If all you're asking for is take another Sunday out of your calendar year, I don't think it's that big of a deal. But if the league continues to get to a point where you're having games on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, like the whole week has football in it, that's where I think you run a bigger risk for fatigue, if that makes sense. I don't think expanding the schedule does it. I think it's more or less dominating more of the individual days of the week is where I've heard the most pushback from fans.
What about if it leads to consistent, just like injuries of players, right? I mean that's the other risk you run, I guess, right?
There's two, yes, for certain, because you're asking, if you're expanding regular season games, the trade-off would have to be scrapping more preseason games. They're already going to get to a point where if you gave truth serum to all the owners, I'm ignoring the PA here for a second, but we'll get to them. If you gave a truth serum to all of the NFL owners and you asked them, hey, we'll give you your 20-game season. And I know right now we're just talking about 18, but you're right, Jake. At what point does it stop? Like, you figure that a nice round 20 spot would be fine for what the NFL could envision in a perfect world. But let's keep that in mind of a 20-game schedule someday, but no preseason. I think the owners would take that. I think fans would take it too. Like, I don't know how coaches necessarily feel about it. There's been mixed reactions to the importance of preseason games from, depending on which coaches you hear give sound bites about it throughout the course of a season. But yeah, I think that's where we're trending, and inherently injuries would increase. The two things that I would want if I was a part of the PA is, well, 3 things actually, if you're expanding, and these are non-negotiable for me. If you're adding more games, and I'm putting my body on the line in this world, I'm pretending what an imaginary world it is that I'm an NFL football player. You were saying that for 20 games, for 18 games, any expansion, I need the double bye restored, or the 2 first-round byes, I beg your pardon, restored. They removed that, was it 3 years ago now, where because they added a playoff spot, they only have 1 bye that's up for grabs. If you're going to expand the season to more games, you need a little bit more stakes involved. Return the system to where it was, where 2 teams get by. That's number 1 for me. Number 2, franchise tag has to be gone. That is the biggest weapon that is used against players, and it is your only leverage chip of complaint that you probably have in your arsenal. The franchise tag either should be gone or should be modified in a way where it's not trapping players for multiple years. If you want to use it once, that's fine, but it's a big kind of captivity thing for players, is the multiple tags that can be placed on you.
When the franchise tag, though, is designed, Jimmy, part of the reason the NFL is as big as it is because, like in Major League Baseball, everybody loves spring training because hope springs eternal, right?
Sure.
And
this could be our year, everybody. Yep.
Correct. but everybody knows deep down it ain't our year, right? In
Why'd
the
you look
NFL,
at Eddie for that one?
I'm a Reds fan too. I get it, right?
Okay.
But in the NFL, the ability for every team, the competitive balance between the salary cap, the revenue sharing, the bye week, the franchise tag, the draft process,
Sure.
it is all designed, the schedule order, it's all designed for teams to flip from, holy cow, we were 4-13 last year, and now all of a
Turnaround.
sudden we're
Yep.
right there in the wild card, and everybody wants to know who's going to be. We're going to be this year's Detroit, and I don't mean the Detroit of historically. I mean like last year's
year.
Lions.
Quick turnaround. Yeah.
And so those things are in play for that balance.
No, I get why it's there. The players don't like it. Players do not
Right.
like the
I get
franchise
that.
tag because it prevents
I get
them
it.
from getting their wealth sooner.
And players
than
probably
they
aren't
would
going to
have
like an
otherwise.
18-week.
Correct. So
18-game schedule either,
So where does the compromise happen?
Yeah, that's fair.
If I'm
That's
a
fair.
player, again, these are the first two things I'm asking for. The last thing, and I already mentioned it at the very beginning, a shortening of or the entire kill-off of preseason and a modification for the offseason. So if you can give me a second first-round bye restored to the playoffs, if you can give me no more or a shortening of how many times a player can be franchise tagged down to like maybe once and no more preseason, those would be my three demands if I was on the NFLPA.
But also, like, the franchise tag helps teams like Indianapolis, Carolina.
I'm not arguing that. I'm talking about the
and those
player's
other teams,
perspective.
because, like,
I'm-
then you are giving all your star
No.
players the opportunity to go bolt to
I totally
Dallas,
get
to Vegas, to
Yeah, it's-
LA.
that. You are arguing for the owners in that. I'm not saying you're arguing for it, but what you're bringing up are the owner's argument for it. I'm saying from the player's point of view, the tag sucks. It sucks.
Oh,
Yeah.
well. Like,
Okay, but
what-
it's a negotiation between.
I understand, but
Why, if you're a player, why would you want to expand to 18 games? What is the league giving me to agree to expand?
Yeah, it's a
That
give
would
and
be my
take.
biggest
It's a
point of
give and take,
contention.
right?
I'm not saying the league's going to do it, but if you're a player, that's 1,000%. One of the things at the top of your list is why do we have this system in place where it can trap me with an organization that doesn't want to pay me for an extra 2 or 3 years, and then by the time I finally get to market, I'm not worth what I could have been earlier in my career.
Continue conversation with it with Joel Erickson, who's going to join us at the bottom of the hour talking about the Colts and the NFL. When we return, remembering an Indianapolis legend.
911, what's your emergency?
Yesterday, the sports world got the news, and I totally understand, and I'm going to ask for, I guess, a combination of forgiveness or just your ear here, because I do think that in the historical perspective of the city of Indianapolis, it is unquestionably significant. The sports today in Indianapolis is obviously and understandably dominated by the Indianapolis Colts. And the National Football League is the 800-pound gorilla in sports, no question about it. And second to that would be probably the Pacers, and then Indiana basketball and Purdue basketball being what they have done of late. It goes without saying. And I know that it is, and even for myself, at times it is hard to envision or understand the totality of the impact that the Indianapolis 500-mile race had globally, and yes, I'm saying globally, in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s in Indianapolis before Bill Hudnut decided to try to lure an NFL team, before the Indiana Pacers made the transition from ABA into NBA, and before even when they were dominating in the ABA. The city of Indianapolis, historically speaking, was the crossroads of America, and it became a populated area because of the interchange from the Kansas City stockyards and the railroad lines that came from the west up to Chicago. And that's essentially how Indianapolis came to be. And it was Indianapolis for certain for the vast majority of time. And as Kurt Vonnegut once said, it was the miniature golf 364 days a year and the Indianapolis 500 on the 365th. But when Tony Holman bought the Speedway and decided that he wanted to make the Indianapolis 500 the premier motorsports racing event in the world, and Carl Fisher had had that same vision, but of course the two world wars and especially World War II impacted that. But Tony Holman bought the track in 1945 and said, essentially, if you are one of the 33 fastest cars, this is where you're going to run. And so as a result of that, it became the breeding ground and the display case for the innovation of the automobile. And I totally understand and respect why that is not only foreign as a concept, but probably as an interest point to many people living in Indianapolis today. But to understand the history of Indianapolis is to understand the fact that we as a city were for so long known everywhere for that race. And the drivers that participated in it and the automobiles that they were displaying became legendary figures around not just the United States but the world, and therefore Indianapolis became known in the sports world as much as anywhere else in the United States because of the Indianapolis 500-mile race. And during that time, you had all kinds of different, it wasn't like today where you had two engine manufacturers and one chassis. You had all kinds of different people that were utilizing the Indianapolis 500-mile race to grow or promote the innovation of their latest advance in the automobile. You had rear engine cars that eventually, that was a new thing. Holy cow, they're running rear engines. You had cars that were running on diesel. You had cars that were running in gasoline. You had people doing whatever they could from an aerodynamic standpoint to become faster. And the drivers that were able to conquer those changes and win races based on those changes became American heroes. And that includes Rufus Jones, who was born in Arkansas but very quickly moved to California with his family and caught the racing bug before the age where it was legal to race throughout California, and his middle name was Parnell. So he came up with a doctored, basically a fake ID that called himself Parnelli Jones, but people were like, wait a minute. If you're going to go by Parnell, we've got to paint your name on the side of the car. And he had a girl in school that he had allegedly had a crush on named Nellie. So his friend that was painting his race car put Parnelli on the side, and thus Parnelli Jones became a race driver. He came to Indianapolis and immediately left an impact and made an impact. He only raced here 7 times in 7 Indianapolis 500s. I mentioned this earlier. In 1961, he surpassed the 150-mile-an-hour mark in qualifying. He was faster in each of his 4 laps. He got 150 shiny silver dollars for his efforts, and it became legendary that in Indianapolis, Indiana, someone surpassed the 150-mile-an-hour speed barrier, which had been talked about for years before it happened. In 1962, he nearly won the Indianapolis 500-mile race, and then came 1963. And 1963, the man that had been formerly known as Rufus before he began racing and became known as Parnelli, won the Indianapolis 500-mile race. And this is how it sounded in 1963 when Parnelli Jones became a winner.
And there's the checkered flag for Parnelli Jones, the winner of the 1963 500-mile race. Parnelli Jones from Torrance, California, wins the 500.
That is Sid Collins on the call, and Parnelli Jones, who, again, as I mentioned earlier, ran 7 times at Indianapolis. He led in 5 of those 7 races. In totality, he led 492 of the 1,130 laps that he turned at Indianapolis. That's 43.5%. Of the laps that he turned, he was in the lead. Only Jim Clark and Bill Vukovich have a higher percentage in terms of the laps that they led. Parnelli Jones had races that he dominated. He only ended up with one Indianapolis 500-mile win. But he always was gracious in talking about the fact that he got that one and that there were sure others that eluded him, but that did not make him unique to Indianapolis. He personified everything that makes the Indy 500 and made it what it was because he was part of the innovation of the automobile. He raced in, the turbine engine that dominated in 1967 and then broke apart, and heartache came after he had dominated that race and led 171 laps. He dominated in 1962 and had issue. He was running at the end. He never had a race of the 7 where he left the race due to an accident, but it was attrition that did take place for him. When he left Indianapolis after his 7 500s, he had the 3rd highest lap led total in 500 history. He is now 8th on that list. But 1967 is probably the year that people will most remember because he had that victory in hand, and it went away from him. But he knew about victory because, as we talked about, he won in 1963. And to go back to that real quick, here he is in Victory Lane, Torrance, California's Parnelli Jones, and he's being now all of a sudden catapulted into a racing star, not only in the United States, but really around the world. More on that in a second. But this is how it sounded when Parnelli Jones was interviewed in Victory Lane after the 1963 Indianapolis 500-mile race.
The only thing I can say is I love everybody. I just can't believe it yet. I'm sitting here and I'm trying to tell myself that you won the race, and I just can't believe it.
And the fact that he loved everybody exuded in the way that he presented himself in his retirement years. Because as I talked about, even when heartache was there, Parnelli Jones never dwelled on that. He dwelled on the fact that he was an individual that had gratitude about being there. 1967, he comes in the car that people that went to those races still talk about. The turbine engine, whoosh, hardly made a sound. And the STP Andy Granatelli machine is one of the legendary cars in Indianapolis. But it failed him, and he didn't win the race. And Parnelli Jones has talked about that.
The best described that by, I went to the banquet the next evening or whenever that, and the next day I left to drive home back to Los Angeles. When I went to leave town, it was like leaving your house when you know you forgot something and you don't know what it is. And that feeling went on for a long time. And even when I came back the following year, I had the same feeling. And it took me a while to get over that feeling that just like I left something there. And I did.
But he also talked about Parnelli Jones over the course of his life and his career, the fact that the track doesn't necessarily owe you anything in that. He got that win in 63. And Parnelli Jones, in his later years, would come back to Indianapolis He would do the ceremonial laps in different cars before the race, showcasing the cars in which he had driven and won, showcasing the cars in which others had driven and won. He drove the Marmon Wasp at one point that Ray Haroon had won. And he was always gracious in talking about what the Indianapolis Motor Speedway meant and what the Indianapolis 500 meant and about the great competitors with which he raced and many of which he beat. He became a race car owner. He owned the car, one of the most famous cars in the history of the Speedway, the Johnny Lightning Special, but he had Al Unser, he had Joe Leonard, and then later he had Mario Andretti in the Viceroy car. Viceroy, a cigarette sponsorship, and at that time, the racing series was sponsored by Marlboro. That was quite the controversy of the day. But again, Parnelli's ability to innovate and to dip his hand in different aspects of racing, whether it be through ownership, through driving, whether it be in USAC, whether it be in the Baja races in California, whether it be in Formula One in his ownership standpoint, he was always seemingly ahead of the curve and continuing to grow the sport, but doing so as a true definition of a gentleman. Humble, kind. He loved everybody. You heard him say there. He parlayed a lot of his race winnings into becoming a Firestone distributor in California. And the old saying, I got my stones from Parnelli Jones. Mario Andretti was one of the drivers that he hired as an owner. Mario Andretti was one of the drivers that he raced against. Mario Andretti is one of the drivers that talks about Parnelli Jones in terms of his greatness as a driver. And Mario Andretti once had a comment about Parnelli Jones as a driver that meant so much to Parnelli Jones that he had it printed out, framed, had Mario sign it, and it still to this day hangs in the office in California of Parnelli Jones. That's how much it meant to Parnelli to have the praise of Mario Andretti. And Mario Andretti, last night when I heard the news that Parnelli had passed away, and again, I realize this is a show where we talk mostly about the Colts and the Pacers. I get that. But I thought that it would be good to have someone that could speak more eloquently and more obviously directly about Parnelli Jones than I, who has the firsthand experience of who he was as a racer, as an owner, and as a man. And so Mario Andretti agreed to come on this show in 45 minutes to share his experiences. But Parnelli Jones, the name alone, Jimmy, his name wasn't Johnny Jones. It wasn't Bill Smith. It's Parnelli Jones. And Mario Andretti, that name stuck out to him as well. And we'll have Mario share and expand on that. But he truly was one of the legends of the Speedway and one of the legends of Indianapolis because he was a superstar of sport in this town during a time when the superstars of sport in this town came from the Speedway and not from the NFL or the NBA. Different era, I realize, but nonetheless, he was married for, I believe, 57 years. His son, P.J. Jones, running the Indianapolis 500. His grandson, Jagger Jones, ran in Indy Lights / Indy Next. And in addition to that, you know, he had two sons. The other one also a racer, didn't run in Indianapolis. But nonetheless, a true legend in the passing of Parnelli Jones. And, Jimmy, looking forward to talking to Mario coming up at 2 o'clock.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you have an opportunity to talk to Mario Andretti, you know it's going to be an insightful conversation, but especially in this instance, as you outlined eloquently there, Jake, the idea of being able to have somebody with firsthand accounts of what Parnelli Jones meant to not just the racing community, but to all those that knew him. As someone that, you know, is dated to, you know, by this to the point that I obviously was not around during the height of any of the career accomplishments of Parnelli Jones, to be able to look back on his career and know that he did it not only as a driver, not only setting speed records, but also as an owner, to have 2 500 victories, Al Unser winning those for Parnelli on the ownership side, and then him winning in 63, to have accomplished pretty much everything that you'd want to do in that sport and be as beloved as he was, as it's noted. I know that, people, we joke with you about your second half century of your life. I mean, to be known as the oldest living winner of the Indy 500 is, I'm sure, a bittersweet type of accomplishment to have to your name, but his legacy was outstanding, and I'm looking forward to getting the perspective of somebody that knew him well in Mario Andretti.
The oldest man in terms of a lifespan, the longest lifespan of an Indianapolis 500 winner is Louis Meyer, who lived to be 91 years old. And now the oldest living winner is A.J. Foyt. And in addition to that, A.J. Foyt already holds the record for the winner of the longest to go race because he won in 1961. But Mario Andretti and Parnelli Jones are now the only living winners from the 1960s. But Godspeed to Parnelli Jones. Talking about the NFL schedule, I think this is interesting. J-Law has an interesting point. Even though the NFL is a great product to watch, it'll be oversaturating the professional sports ticket all over. This would be an increased cost to season ticket holders as well. This is all about the Benjamins for the owners. I didn't think of it from the standpoint of because I think there's already not a resentment, but I think people are – there's an arm throw up in the air over the fact that, like, you've got to buy, and I know that they reduced the preseason games, but the additional cost of games to season ticket holders is another aspect of it that I could see being a factor.
It is, and J-Law is right about the last part as well. It is about the Benjamins. That's all it's ever been about for the ownership groups. It's all it's ever been about for the NFL and any of the sports leagues, but especially the most powerful one of the most powerful ones in the world and the most powerful one certainly in this country, the National Football League. I guess you look at that from the question of, A, how much does it increase what you're paying? Because you're looking at, I have no idea. I guess I could look this up. I don't know how much it would cost per game to get like a average season ticket at Lucas Oil Stadium. I never looked into purchasing season tickets.
It varies on level, so.
Could you get, do you have one off the top of your head, like that for certain that's what it is? I figured it would vary on level, but like.
I know in let's say the 200-ish level, it's probably 120 per ticket per game. So,
okay. So if you're, let's say 240 for, you and a friend, and you're doing that you're just adding another $240 onto your bill. If that's all that would increase, I guess the pushback that the team would make and the league would make, and to some extent I would make, I get it. You have to make choice in life on what you're going to spend your money on. And that's half of consumerism in this country, is what you're selling palatable enough for somebody to want to spend their hard-earned dollars to go experience, to go see. I suppose the pushback would be if you're the Colts or if you're the league, for somebody that says, hey, you're taking more money out of my pocket now. Well, you're getting another high-quality, you would think, game that matters towards playoff implications, that matters towards your hunt for a division title. We always talk about oversaturation of the NFL. And I can say this cleanly, Jake, because so many people, the numbers back me up, love the NFL, devote time to watch it because it's our arguably most popular. I mean, it is, from a viewership standpoint, it is our most popular sport in the country. I don't hear people saying as often, and I don't want to fully generalize here, in December, man, I really miss June baseball. Or I really miss, a Wednesday at the United Center to go see the Blackhawks play. Like, I don't feel that as much, and I get it, we're not a hockey or a baseball town from a professional level, but like, the only time I hear longing from people is, man, I miss football. I miss college football, or I miss NFL football. So the idea of putting another game, not a preseason game, but a game that really matters in the schedule, when there's times in this coming summer months we'll look around on a Thursday night and be like, man, I know I talked a bunch of smack about Jets-Ravens last year, but gosh, I really miss that. Like, I think as the season happens, you begin to cherish those games more so, especially when they have stakes. So as long as the product isn't diluted, which you brought this up earlier, as the stakes of what's teams are playing for isn't diluted, I think the bang is probably still worth your buck.
Roger Goodell's talked about it. Like, they eventually want to get to 18 games, and when they do that, they'll add a second bye week, and they're trying to extend that Super Bowl, push it back. So really,
the reports of them having it on when is it? I can't remember what the holiday is.
What, Labor Day?
No, there's a holiday weekend that they wanted to have the Super Bowl around because it already has
I
a
thought you meant
built-in.
the beginning of the year. They wanted
No,
to start
the end of the year. It's not President's Day, is it? What am I?
Well, President's Day would be. I mean, President's Day is in February. Is that what you're thinking of?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's a national holiday.
Memorial
right?
Day.
No, it's not
No,
Memorial
no,
Day.
no,
It's
not
end
that.
of the season.
My bad. I was looking too far ahead.
I'd say.
That's my fault.
No, the only holiday I could think of in February would be is President's Day, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I'll have to find this article, but there were rumblings. I can't remember if it was an interview at Goodell.
You know, the only month without a national holiday is August. Let's just push it back and make the NFL opening weekend a national holiday, right? What the hell? Why not?
But
Let's go.
The argument has been for years of, man, I wish I had Super Bowl Monday off. And maybe it was President's Day. The hope was to always have the Super Bowl on President's Day weekend, so that would then give you the Monday off from work that everybody's so desperate to have when you're having wings and drinking beer on Super Bowl Sunday.
And there's already been reports about them altering the offseason schedule as it is and giving players more time off and getting rid of OTAs and mandatory minicamp and then moving up the start of training camp. So there's not as much going on throughout the course of the season.
I knew I recognized this piece somewhere. And a shout out to the man that we had on yesterday, Stephen Holder. It was his piece, Jake, that talked about the NFL's dream about, 18 game slate and maybe a President's Day weekend Super Bowl for what I outlined there.
I know that I'm the anomaly here, probably, but I do think I do think that there is, and J-Law pointed out. I don't disagree with him. I do think that if you start spreading it out over too long, NASCAR is a prime example. NASCAR is a very good example. Like NASCAR now, people are like, oh my gosh, it starts in February and it goes until like November. And it has kind of saturated itself to the point where, and their ratings are starting to tick back up a little bit, but they NASCAR did it too aggressively, don't get me wrong. But they went too aggressive in, just capitalizing everywhere they could too fast. And it diluted to people the interest level because you just couldn't get away from it. And the necessity of, I have to watch this weekend kind of went away for people because it was like, well, there's like 40 more of them. And I think in the NFL, and I realize we're only talking a couple of games difference here, but in terms of spreading the schedule out, part of what made the NFL what it is you knew that it was 16 weeks and that's it, and it was these days of the week and that's it. And now all of a sudden, if you're spreading games, not only spreading the calendar thin across the board, but putting more games throughout the course of the week, you start to eventually, not overnight,
sure,
but you start to eventually lose the can't miss, must see aspect of it.
Half of that is where I'm with you. I don't know that it happens the way you envision it happening by adding 2 more Sundays to the calendar. But what I talked about earlier, having more days of the week occupy it is where I think you really get yourself into trouble.
I would
if
agree
you're
with
just
that.
adding 2 weekends, no big deal. I think you're probably fine.
By the way, I had said, and I think I said this, I just was thinking about it. I said 61. It was 62 when Parnelli broke 150. He was a rookie in 61. 62, he broke 150. So if I said 61 earlier, I apologize. Joel Erickson next.
Today, filing for Social Security
Now, before we talk football with Joel A. Erickson, I have to get to the meat of the matter here.
Is it about the fact that Josh Downs might have overtaken him for best laugh we've ever had on the show?
No, because Joel has, and again, the guy that Silence of the Lambs was patterned after was from Wisconsin. Ed Gein, he's from Plainfield, Wisconsin, and then obviously Dahmer's from Wisconsin, and then you have Joel A. Erickson from Wisconsin that has this laugh right here. That is a true story. Look it up. That's a true story. The demonic nature of that is alarming. But he joins us now, and he is a Wisconsin native, and I'm going to Road America this weekend. So, two-part question, Joel. The first is it it's Fond du Lac? That's how you say that, right?
Yep, Fond du Lac.
Okay, I'm staying in Fond du Lac this weekend. We've never stayed there. We usually stay in Sheboygan. We're going to be at Road America. So, A, do you need spotted cow brought back or anything else in that genre? And then B, is there anything that I need to see in Fond du Lac, and notably any serial killers from the area?
I can't help you with the serial killers. It's been a long time since I've been in Fond du Lac, if we're being honest. My family is in other parts of the state, and I remember going there. It's a fun name to say, but I don't remember much about what's there, if we're being honest.
Should be fondue restaurants there, right? I mean, if they know what they're doing, right?
There should, but I mean, fondue. Let's just be realistic here. It's a little classier than most Wisconsin eating establishments to have fondue.
Yeah, melting cheese in Wisconsin is sacrilegious. Are you kidding me? You got to eat that by the cube.
We prefer it fried. We prefer it fried. That's really like true. Our hot cheese.
The old fried curds. All right, Joel. In terms of the Colts, and we talked to Josh Downs earlier. Obviously, Anthony Richardson, the big storyline, but what are we sleeping on that you have an eye on, whether it be with the Colts or the NFL in general here during these sessions?
I think maybe Josh Downs is getting slept on a little bit. Not necessarily in these, partially in these sessions, but also I think in the general discussion about Colts wide receivers, it sort of seems to be, okay, they've got Pittman, now they've got Mitchell, and then we kind of just don't really talk about Downs, but like the numbers last year, 68 catches is a lot of catches for a rookie. And he was hurt in the middle of the season, and he kind of tailed off, but like his first 8 games, if he hadn't gotten hurt and kept at that pace, we're talking about like an 85 catch season and 1,000 yards. And, you never know with health, but I think maybe that people aren't paying enough attention to how much volume Josh Downs might get in this offense. That's my kind of sort of off season. Like I think the Colts might be getting slept on. I think it might be Josh Downs is getting slept on.
Where do you think that volume comes from, Josh? Because where do you think where do you think that Josh's volume comes from, Joel? Because we've talked about Michael Pittman Jr. as the guy that's always near the sticks, that's always there to move the chain, that's always there when you need him in a big situation. And you're right about the volume that we saw in the rookie campaign of Josh Downs. It's well documented, top 50 in the league in a lot of different categories outside of touchdowns, but the other important ones of yardage and receptions, sets the single season rookie record for receptions last year. Where does that volume come from within the Shane Steichen offense?
Well, I mean, I think that for both Pittman and for Downs, there's a significant element of just some of the RPO stuff they're going to do, where those guys are sort of the short yardage, within 10 yards guys, the operators, and that stuff, working that off of what they're going to do in the run game, I think lends itself to those two guys. He did some of it with Gardner Minshew. I mean, Gardner Minshew ran pretty heavy RPO stuff last year, but I just think that with the run threat of Richardson, if you've got defenses increasingly trying to figure out ways to avoid getting gashed by Taylor or Richardson, I think that makes it the key part of the RPO, the run pass option, the pass part. I think opens it up a little bit, and that's kind of where Downs wins a lot. And I just think that the way this receiving core looks to me, I don't think that it changes necessarily Pittman's role in the offense. Pittman is Pittman. He's going to be Pittman. But I think Downs is the high volume guy, and I think those other two guys are more of the explosive types. At least as they start right now.
Joel, to me, one of the things that's interesting is we talk so much about Richardson and Downs and Pittman, and the guy that it's almost like we've forgotten about is Jonathan Taylor. This time a year ago, of course, we didn't anticipate that what was going to happen at camp was going to happen, where all of a sudden he's unhappy and, what's going to happen there and yada, yada, yada. But how are things different than a year ago, and how do they utilize or anticipate or even have they so far presented different ways that they may use Jonathan Taylor than last year?
Well, I think that what's different, you really have to go back to the early season Zach Moss numbers to see what's different for Jonathan Taylor. I don't have them right in front of me, but I think when I looked at it, it was something like in the games that Zach Moss played that Anthony Richardson started, he was almost a full yard per carry better. And I think a lot of that is just that the defense has to pay attention to the quarterback when you're dealing with somebody like Richardson back there versus somebody like Minshew. And now, do they have more of a catch-22 with Taylor back there because Taylor is better equipped to gash somebody than Moss is? Yes, but I still think he's going to benefit from the attention that people are going to have to pay to Richardson. They're going to have to devote defenders to Richardson. They're going to have people's eyes on him, and those are eyes that are not on Jonathan Taylor. And if you have a healthy Jonathan Taylor, I mean, we saw in the season finale, he can still dominate a game.
Joel, where do you feel the bar should be set for expectations for Jelani Woods going in? Because you would think that in that tight end room where it's been well documented, I know you've talked about it in the past, we've talked about it ad nauseum on this show, but there's not a clear, I don't even mean elite tight end, I mean a do-it-all near every down tight end on this roster. There's a lot of tight ends that do different things well, but maybe not everything great, if that makes sense. And there's been talks that maybe Will Mallory or Kylan Granson or somebody of that ilk takes a leap forward this year. For Jelani Woods, it kind of feels like, assuming he can stay healthy, this is his last best chance on this team to be a tight end one. Where should the bar be for him? And am I being too harsh with that assessment?
I don't think you're being too harsh with that. In fact, I just had a story that I wrote at the end of last week, and it posted on IndyStar.com at the beginning of this week. There's some stuff that Chris Ballard kind of said that kind of makes me think it's a little bit make or break for him. I think the expectation, though, with Woods is interesting because if you're assuming that Pittman and Downs are going to be the high volume targets, which is what I'm assuming, and obviously all this is, in a everyone's healthy scenario, which is all we can do at this point.
Right.
I'm not convinced that this offense is going to throw the ball so much if Richardson is the full-time starter that there's a chance for three guys to have super high volume. So I think the number that I might go with is like 12.5 in terms of yards per catch. Because the thing Jelani Woods can do that I really don't think anybody else in the tight end room can do is stretch defenses in the middle of the field. Up the seam, crossing routes at like the 15 to 20-yard window. That's the kind of thing that he can do with his speed and his length, but mostly his speed that I don't really know if you're going to get from the other guys. Granson hasn't really developed into the yard per catch guy, although he's been reliable, but they thought he was going to be a pretty big yards after the catch guy when they drafted him. That hasn't really happened. Mallory is kind of more, at least last year, was kind of more of the traditional tight end, fire it short to intermediate. Jelani Woods gives you some potential for explosiveness. And Shane Steichen doesn't, he doesn't give you a lot of hints. The last time he talked about Woods, it was almost like he's had a chance to watch him on the practice field, and he's like, his mind is worrying on how can I get explosive plays out of this skill set. So I think 12.5 yards per catch, because that's a lot for a tight end.
Joel Erickson is our guest, joining us, of course, on the CarX guest line, talking about the Colts who are gathering right now. I saw that Ryan Kelly was talking earlier, Joel, and that led to a discussion that we've had on the show. I want your thoughts on it. Just about the NFLPA's reaction to the chatter of increasing, and I think it's inevitable, right, that they're going to go to an 18-game schedule. Could it go beyond that? Could we eventually get to a point where the NFL is a 20-game schedule?
I mean, shoot, the owners aren't going to turn down any money anytime soon. They probably, I don't know. I think I made the joke whenever the last 18-game thing came out that eventually they were just going to try to get to 162 and play as much as Major League Baseball. Now, that might be a little hyperbolic, but doesn't it feel like they're just going to keep trying to get more?
What if the players? What's the line in the sand where the players then? And I have no idea how much leeway the players have, but where the players just get we're not going to do it.
Oh, I mean, I think basically the player's best shot is to say, okay, if you want to go to 20 games, say it's 20 games, and they're like, say they might want to make a jump from 18 to 20, and the players are like, we just can't do that. Then I think they're basically what they do is they say, okay, well, we want the revenue split to be super high, and we will not move off of this. And then you have then you end up talking about a strike. And obviously the CBA's in place. I don't think any of that stuff's coming up. But Ryan Kelly was pretty strong today about how he didn't want to go to 17. He doesn't really want to go to 18. So I do think that there's some point in here where the players would be like, we cannot do this. We won't come to the table. It's just going to be interesting to find out what that is because, they've been pushing the 18-game thing pretty hard for a while. The owners, I mean.
Yeah, that feels almost inevitable, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does. To me, it feels like they've been talking about it so long that they're frustrated that they have to go through this 17-game waiting period. Kelly's comments today suggested that the players hated going from 16 to 17. But yeah, I think it feels inevitable if they get to 18. At some point, though, you're going to have to run out of. What do you just eliminate all the preseason games and just play regular season games? I don't know. Yeah, I tend to side with Ryan Kelly. Actually, I don't necessarily know that we needed another week of football. I like the 16 games.
I think that's where it has to trend, though, right? Joel is not necessarily the increase in games, but it has to trend towards if you're increasing the games. Yeah, I think preseason dies. I think you're looking at a total overhaul of the way the offseason calendar operates in terms of what is a healthy balance for – because coaches will argue, and I go back and forth with this, but coaches will argue that the preseason allows you to make proper roster cut decisions or make different channels as you continue to develop who your second and third guys in the depth chart are going to be through that audition process. If you're getting rid of the preseason, you have to figure out a way to still do that. Is training camp and a differing offseason still palatable? The other question that we talked about earlier that I want to get your thoughts on, the revenue split is clearly going to be the biggest marker, and I apologize to the audience. I left that out of my list of demands that I would have if I was part of the players union, but that would absolutely be at the top of the list, is figuring out a better share of revenue. The other things on my list were modifying the franchise tag further. I feel like the league would never go with totally abolishing it, but that's one of the bigger irks for players, is that you're trapped from getting that generational wealth you want, where you can be underneath the thumb of a team for 2, sometimes 3 years in extreme cases, and then by the time you hit market, you're not getting the value that you could have at age 27 or 26. Do you think that's something that players would ask for at the negotiating table, is trying to modify the rules on the tag?
Yeah, absolutely. You've seen it the last couple of years. It's become a flashpoint for certain positions. I think it'll probably end up being a flashpoint for a lot of different positions over the years. This year, it didn't quite come to a head as much because so many of the guys that got tagged ended up getting signed right away. But yeah, the getting rid of the franchise tag would be a clear one. But in an event where they continue to try to escalate, but beyond 18 games, I feel like that's beyond 18 would be the to me. I could be wrong. It seems like a breaking point for the players because getting rid of the preseason games is a kind of token. It's a token.
It's not a real concession made by it's not a real advantage to the players.
Because the starters don't play
right
in most of the preseason games longer than 10 or 15 snaps. So trading 10 or 15 super carefully controlled snaps for 65 full go snaps is not a fair trade.
Yeah, so it had to be franchise tag or the structure of the season or bye weeks, or I mean, I don't know how much the players would care about this, but like I feel like if you're expanding the number of games, that maybe you look at bringing back the double bye in the playoffs. I mean, I feel like a lot of teams have missed that because of the fact that it takes away an extra week of rest for would-be contenders. I know we're 3 years, I think, into that now, but there's so many areas, to your point, where if the owners are not making fair concessions to the players, whether it's tag, whether it's scheduling of days off, whether it is revenue sharing, at some point, if there's no concessions to be offered, you're right, it ultimately leads to, you'd think, a walkout and a strike at some point next time the CBA's up.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we don't necessarily see this in other sports in terms of the length of the season being such a sticking point, because the other major American sports already feel like they play a ton of games, and they haven't, like, in baseball they've been talking about, do they go back to 154?
Right.
Basketball, there's been some talk about
load management, interest in games,
that
yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
The increasing games thing is specific to the NFL and right now. And I just think at some point the players are going to be, especially the veteran players who make up the lead of the thing, it's just of the NFLPA, it's just going to end up being we cannot play 20 games or 21 games or whatever they might. I'm sure owners would say we don't want to play more than 18 games, but I mean,
if the check's still cash, baby, if those checks still cash, that's all that matters.
18 games, and you're going, I would like another 2 checks. So,
okay, Joel. Any orders at all to rehash here? So Spotted Cow, you're good on, is that right?
I think so. I think I will be in Wisconsin soon enough that I can. I actually just had a Spotted Cow. A buddy had some and socked a couple away for me.
Okay.
What's the?
I can get my hands on some new Glarus down here. I've made it clear to. If you're bringing some back from Wisconsin to certain people, they need to save some.
If it's kept refrigerated, I'm asking you out of ignorance. I know I could Google this, but since you are a Wisconsin native, you'll be able to help me with this better. What is the fridge life of a Spotted Cow to where I should probably be like, yeah, it's been in there too long. I just wasted the opportunity to drink it.
I have never tested this.
They're not in the fridge long enough for that to be tested?
No. They do not last. They don't last that long.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, I'll bring some back, Jimmy. Unless you have some in the fridge right now.
I do have some in the fridge right now.
Bring it in. We'll do a taste test tomorrow. Right. We'll see if you yak.
I'll bring it in.
All right. Joel, appreciate it.
Yep, no problem, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Joel A. Erickson joining us on the program. Okay, bring it in tomorrow. We'll test it out.
All right.
Well,
I'll absolutely do that. It's just in the fridge.
Eddie's kind of like our Mikey from Life Cereal here. We'll just have Eddie. Eddie likes everything. We'll have Eddie try it, and then we'll see if
Do you think that'll make him stop side-eyeing us, or is that only if we go to break?
He's jumping up and down and doing jump ropes again. Mario Andretti, by the way, 12 minutes from now. So on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it now, this morning I wake up and I see the post from Mario Andretti. Today at 2 o'clock Eastern, I will talk about Parnelli Jones. So much to share. My brother and I started following Parnelli in 1956. We became lifelong friends. And that conversation with the 1969 Indianapolis 500 winner about the loss of the 1963 Indianapolis 500 winner is next.
The Wake Up Call with KB.
that Parnelli Jones passed away at the age of 90, the 1963 Indianapolis 500-mile race winner, but his career was far more vast, not just as a driver, but as an owner, as a competitor, and I think as a champion of the sport and a representation of it. And I realized that even though I have a great love and passion for the Indianapolis 500-mile race, it would be impossible for me to encapsulate Parnelli Jones properly. So I wanted to bring somebody onto the program that could do it far better than I and probably far better than anybody currently walking Earth. He is on the CarX Tire and Auto guest line. He needs no introduction. Mario Andretti joins us. And Mario, I will begin the conversation simply with a condolence to you, because even though you guys competed on the racetrack, I know what we're talking about here is the passing of one of the beloved figures of your life.
Yeah, thank you, Jake. It's yeah, for sure. It's a sad situation here at the moment. You can never always say you can never prepare for something like this. My love goes out obviously to the entire family. We go back so many years, and as I was reflecting on it, I can't believe it. At age 16, I already was aware of Parnelli Jones. I said that earlier. We were only in the country, Aldo and I, 1 year, and one of our cousins took us to a race in Trenton, New Jersey. It was a USAC race, and here we go. We're watching all the champions, and the one that stood out was Parnelli because we thought he was Italian with the name Parnelli.
Right.
And, we travel extensively during our life together, and whenever in Italy, I would try to teach Parnelli a few Italian words so he could fit right in, because many of my friends and other people thought that he had an Italian background because of that name. And anyway, it was that situation with us, as you said earlier. There was a life that spanned, different eras of our lives, if you will, because it was the racing itself, what he did, and then growing up and then having the opportunity to be on the same track together with him when I broke into that level, being behind him on my first year at India, my rookie year. He finished second behind Jim Clark, and I was third, just behind Parnelli again. But there were stock car races and so on and so forth where we competed against one another. I learned so much from him. As I said this other times, that I had a special appreciation for him as a driver, how he really he had just a finesse about his driving, and there was like this control aggression that was something that was almost impossible to imitate, but certainly something to appreciate. But again, overall, he fit every category imaginable in the best possible way for me in my life.
Mario, when did you first meet Parnelli? I mean, obviously you were aware of him, but what was the circumstance where you first met him? And in a world that is driven by competition within your sport, did you like him right away?
I don't know how you could not like him immediately. There was his personality was such that he was very approachable, and again, even as a competitor to him, with him, it was was something was solid. It was professional, and as you can see, that they always put you at ease. And that's the beauty about this gentleman. It was he was a salt of the earth, the way to say. I don't know how else to describe him.
Mario, can you expand on the type of driver that he was on the racetrack? Was he a gentleman out there? Was he aggressive out there? How would you expand on the type of driver he was?
Well, he was aggressive, obviously, and but he did in such a way that you couldn't fault him, even if he leaned against you and so forth. He was not going to crash you, but also let you know that he's there and so forth. You obviously have to be there to be a winner, but there was a delicate way of being aggressive, if you know what I mean. That's something that could only be appreciated. I remember when I first noticed him, and even in the Can-Am car, he would just slightly rub fenders with you, and let you know, but not to ruin your day or anything. But that was his way. It was something, but he was delicate in a very aggressive way. You tell me how to explain that one.
Well, Mario, when you were with that aggressive, that delicate aggressiveness, right? Was he the kind of guy, Parnelli Jones, when you were a younger driver, even when you were competing, that you could go to? Did he offer advice? Did he lead by example, or was he the kind of guy that you could approach and say, hey, I noticed this, I want you to tell me what you did? Or, could you pick his brain a little bit?
I can give you an example that will exactly answer that question. We were driving for the same owner. I actually was USAC stock cars, which were the same, same as the NASCAR cars of the moment. Was in probably late '60s, and we were in Milwaukee testing, and I could not match his time. I could do pretty good on the road courses, like in Wentzville, other places where in Mosport we race together. But on a mile track, for instance, I could not match his time. So I said, Parnelli, can I ride with you a few laps? And I was just laying on the floor and hanging on to the roll bar on the right side and watching him perform through the corners. It taught me so much. Who else would want to, would allow you to do that? And he was generous in that area. He felt so sure of himself, that he had no problem, just pretty much sharing, some of what he felt that he knew that could be helpful to someone like myself, for instance.
Mario, I want to read you something and get your reaction to this, and I'm assuming that you are aware of this. But this is a following quote from you regarding Parnelli Jones, and I'll read simply the second paragraph of it. I certainly looked up to him, and I won my first championship in 1965 only because Parnelli returned after Indy that year. And for that, I say thank you. Had he continued racing, PJ would have amassed a record that would have been the envy of everyone. So if you want to describe a total winner, there you have it, Parnelli Jones. That quote from Mario Andretti. Now, the reason I read that to you, Mario, is because that quote was printed, framed, and hanging inside the office of Parnelli Jones to this day. Were you aware of how much your words meant to him?
Well, obviously I was not aware of that part, but I said it, and what I meant actually after Indianapolis, he retired, not returned. He retired open wheel racing after that, and I meant that I won my national championship that year in USAC in my rookie year. But if he would have remained as a competitor, I don't think that would have happened. So I said it and I meant it, and that's how much I thought about him as a competitor. He was probably as good as you could ever want to have or be up against, and also intimidating to some degree, for sure.
And it says retired, by the way. If I said returned, I apologize if I misquoted that. It says retired right here before me. But
yes.
So Mario, Steve Shunk, who you know well and was very close with Parnelli, Steve Shunk once told me that he had never seen the kind of mutual respect that he saw that Parnelli had for you and you for Parnelli. And I think it speaks volumes about a driver that Mario Andretti would say he learned from him because of your career. How often did the two of you speak about, quite frankly, your love and your admiration for one another?
I don't think you needed to talk about it. I think it was there. It was obvious. It was pure. There was something very special between us, as you say, ultimate respect for one another, and also just totally enjoying being together. We used to have honest fun together, kidding around and all of those things, kibitzing and all the good things in life. And the families, we spent time together whenever possible. Obviously, we both had complicated lives, but, my kids, Barbie, Michael, and Jeff, grew together along with PJ and, and Paige. You know what I mean? Our life just combined in such a way that it was just not one side. It had a total aspect of it, and just the fact that when he, we used to talk about, our, where we came from, Italy and so forth, and his partner Val was from Yugoslavia, from Dubrovnik, and we traveled in that area. We used to travel extensively in Italy, and then took Parnelli to my hometown in Montona, and Val, obviously went to his hometown and things like that. But along the way, we just we had such great time. It was a natural thing to be together, but a lot of it begins with a respect for one another. I think that brings you together automatically, if you know what I mean. And nothing needs to be said; it's just there.
After Al Unser won, the Johnny Lightning Special, one of the great cars in Indy history, he wins back-to-back in 70 and 71. And then you join that team, Vels Parnelli Jones Racing, with, Al and Joe Leonard, and it's a dream team, right? And Mario Andretti. When you look back on that, what was it that drew you to that, and how much fun was that era for you?
Well, what drew me was the fact that watching Al's performance and everything, you always knew that he would have top equipment, and then I had something to do with getting the services of Maurice Philippe, because I got to know him at Lotus, just a few years before, when I drove sporadically for Lotus in Formula One, and so when he hired him, of course, we all know about the dihedral car and so on and so forth, the battles of that, and but then again, Joe Leonard won a championship that year. Al and I could not finish a race for some reason. But they called it a super team. That in itself was something of a compliment, if you will. And we enjoyed each other, as teammates, for sure. Al and Joe and myself. So, and the time together, here again, we just, I could go so many different eras in our career, really, where we were together. I'm the one that always talking about Formula One and so on and so forth, and I talked to him and Val Miletich to field a Formula One car, to have Maurice Philippe, who's brilliant background there, to design a car, and we campaigned in 1975, and so you can see spending all that much time together was a lot of quality time, a lot of joys and pains, and all of that to be shared. But again, when I look back, it's I'm just so count my blessing for having had those opportunities to spend those times together.
And obviously, with that team, you get your opportunity in Formula One, Mario, and then later you go on to win the Formula One championship in 1978. How much do you look back on, and I guess credit Parnelli for giving you that opportunity and springboarding you into that dream of becoming a Formula One world champion?
Well, my career, it's interesting the way I was looking at Formula One. My first, race was in 1968, but then I could not afford really even financially to go into Formula One, even though I had opportunity with Ferrari and so on and so forth, and Lotus. So I was doing it sporadically, and finally I said to him, I have to make a decision in my career to do it full time, before I regret not doing it. And at the time, all the seats, the good seats, were taken in Formula One. So I said, why don't we do it ourselves? And Parnelli knew how much that meant to me, and he said, yeah, let's do it. And by doing that full season in '75, then they sort of lost interest, but then at the beginning of '76, I only did 2 races, and at Long Beach they made a decision to withdraw, and Colin Chapman had probably the worst performing race of his entire career as an entrant, and so he and I joined. We were both had our chin in our socks, but we made something of it. In 3 years, we won a championship. So, like I said, he was there. Parnelli was instrumental in getting me in full time and dedicating time of my career, so I could at least say I've tried, and it turned out to be obviously, for me, realizing the dream of my life, really, because that's how attracted me first of all into auto racing.
Mario Andretti is our guest, remembering the life of Parnelli Jones, who passed away at the age of 90. Mario, what were the similarities and differences between Parnelli Jones, the driver, and Parnelli Jones, the team owner?
Well, obviously, as a driver, there was something that it's you're more selfish and so forth, but the abilities are second to none. As an owner, he was one that totally understood the needs for a driver. So he was a dream in so many ways to be driving for, because when you talked to him, he totally knew what you were talking about, and you knew that you were going to get the right help from him. That was the beauty of it all, and it gave you the confidence also that everything possible was going to happen, be done, at least on the team side, to be able to accommodate and make our life as pleasant, as easy as possible as drivers.
Mario, when you, in the last day, and I know, there's probably so many emotions that come in, right? Because we're talking about somebody that was so impactful throughout the course of your life. But when you have had a chance to kind of sit back and just reflect on Parnelli, the friend, what memory stands out for you more than any other?
That the memory was that no matter what situation we were in, whether it was professional or personal, he was always the same. It was always a smile. There was a feeling that we had. It was very special for one another, and that was automatic, and just a feel-good situation between Parnelli and myself.
And with that, Mario, were you guys, what was the last couple of years? And I know that obviously, Parkinson's, Parnelli suffered from, and the last few years, I'm assuming for his life, were not necessarily always the easiest. But what was your level of communication with him, in the later years?
Well, it basically was telephone calls and so forth, and he would always take my call, and and Judy, of course, we stay in touch, and a year ago I visited his home, and we just had a few laughs there, among other things. Obviously, just thinking of the past and going, reminiscing the good times. But again, it was always a feel-good thing, with him, and his wife Judy, just such a wonderful, beautiful lady. Just stood by his side in the best possible way, and so, like I said, it just the only way I can describe it, it's family. Like, you felt like family all the way around.
Lastly, Mario, I had said at the outset of the show today, and I don't know that I ever had this epiphany before, but when I really was thinking about it and kind of looking over the career and the life of Parnelli Jones, and there are many drivers, you would be one of them for sure, that this matches to, but I feel like Parnelli Jones personified the Indianapolis 500-mile race as much as anybody because he was part of the innovation. He was part of the speed records. He was part of ownership and competitor. But he was also part of the heartache and the joy of it. How would you encapsulate his career as an Indianapolis 500 contributor?
Well, immense career. First of all, as you say, being competitive there. He was not as lucky as he deserved, obviously, for as strong as he was. He should have won more than one for sure. I mean, including the one with the turban. But he, again, he was a force to be reckoned with there always as a driver. No question. That's what stood out. Again, you sometimes you had joy and some suffering with him as well because he was not the luckiest guy there, and I could identify a little bit myself with that. But everyone knew he was there when he was on the track, I can tell you.
Mario Andretti talking about Parnelli Jones today. Mario, I know it is a sad time, but at the same time, I guess when you look back on the life in totality, the friendship that you had, the respect, a time to be joyous as well, to be grateful for not only what he gave you as a friend, but also for us race fans that simply can look back on what he did as a race car driver. It truly is remarkable, but I cannot thank you enough in what I know is a difficult time to be able to eloquently share the memories and the legacy of your friend. It is very much appreciated.
Thank you so much, Jake. It just, you said it gallantly that there's so many positives here to look back to and reflect on that, and that's what we'll go with.
Mario, we appreciate it. Wish you well, and we'll see you at the racetrack soon, okay?
You bet.
All right, Mario Andretti joining us on the CarX Tire and Auto guest line. A pretty good conversation there, looking back on a tremendous career for Parnelli Jones. And again, Jimmy, I can only imagine the honor of knowing that you are the driver that Mario Andretti says he learned from. That's a pretty short list.
That aspect of the conversation, then the nugget that you shared about the mutual respect, admiration, and love between those two, that Parnelli Jones would have a quote that Mario Andretti made about him as a driver hanging in his office all these years. That's really cool. All the way around, both those aspects of those conversations. The whole conversation was great. I'll be on the podcast center a little bit later in case you missed it on 1075thefan.com. But the connection between those two and you could tell it in the way that Mario spoke, but that factoid about, you mentioned it, Parnelli having that quote in his office is really, really cool.
And again, this is a very inside baseball comment. And for those that don't know, that's a phrase, meaning like it only applies to a small group of people, I realize. But I think it bears repeating because I think there's a lesson to be learned for anybody in this. I met Robin Miller when I was in college, and he wrote a column that I didn't agree with, and I called him on the telephone when I was in college and said, I think that you were unfair in this column, and we talked for a brief second, and he said, what do you want to do for your career? And I said, I want to get into, covering sports. And he said, well, would you be interested in shadowing at the Indianapolis Star? And literally the next day I drove to Indianapolis, and Robin Miller, from then on, did what he could to help me out. And in that capacity, and I'm not alone in this regard because that's the way Robin was, in that capacity, Robin Miller invited me to, and I ended up working at the Star. He got me a job working in the Agate Bureau of the Star, taking in box scores and things like that when I was in college. And Robin, as a result of that, and I've always been unbelievably grateful and blessed by this, but he treated me like, like I was Bill Benner or Don Bates or one of the guys that had been around forever, right? Because he treated everybody the same as equals, which I always loved. But in that capacity, I met Steve Shunk, who was a friend of Robin's, who had worked in racing, who grew up in Michigan. Actually, I think he grew up in Ohio, but around the Michigan Speedway and was a huge racing fan. And Steve worked in different capacities in racing, and I met Steve through Robin. And Steve Shunk, who now works in the public relations for Borg Warner, He's the one that is in charge of taking the Borg Warner Trophy at different places, or arranging, I should say, when you see the Borg Warner. He is also in charge of presenting the former winners with a baby Borg replica for them. And when Robin got sick, and Steve Shunk was literally like a brother to Robin and vice versa, but when Robin got sick, and Steve was the guy. He was the point man. He was the one that was orchestrating when people would go to visit Robin and everything else. And literally Steve, I think, was like sleeping in hallways. I mean, it was incredible, the display of friendship and loyalty. And Steve Shunk had he has a great admiration for the heroes of racing that he now calls friends, and that included Bobby Unser, Gordon Johncock, and Parnelli, and Robin. Those were basically his Mount Rushmore of people in his life. And through it all, his loyalty to those men, to champion them, to stand by them, to create the memories of their legacy. And Gordon Johncock is still with us, don't get me wrong, but the others, Bobby Unser, Parnelli, and Robin, all who have been lost of late. And I've reached out to Steve on a couple of occasions just to say, hey, just want to see how you're doing and whatever else. And immediately it turns to not how Steve is doing, but rather to tell you another story about the greatness of Robin, the greatness of Parnelli, the greatness of Uncle Bobby. And that kind of a loyalty and that kind of a commitment and dedication to friendship is the kind of thing that everybody should aspire, not only to be to their friends, but to find within friendship of other people. It's remarkable. And it does make my heart, hurt a little bit for Steve and for the people that knew Parnelli Jones well, that knew Bobby Unser. Mario Andretti would be in that list. I mean, you're talking about somebody that is Mario Andretti, who has lost in the last handful of years his sister, his wife, obviously now Parnelli. There have been a number of people that Mario has lost, and to have that grace and that ability to come on this radio program and still be able to talk about and reflect upon and champion the people close to you is the kind of thing that I absolutely love. I love it for those guys that they have that, and I am truly grateful and blessed that they're able to share it with us either privately or over the radio. We'll come back. We'll talk a little bit more about what's taking place on West 56th Street. We'll do so on the other side, and Jimmy's Plays of the Day coming up in about 20 minutes as well.
The entire Olympics, or would that be too excessive? The Olympic theme for our podcast audience, we know they can't hear the music. But
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Now, did you see the pool it's in Lucas Oil Stadium? It's unbelievable.
I did. And by the way, because I promised my cousin that I would do this, he had a remark, Alex Neely, on Twitter today, that it praised Lucas Oil for getting the Olympic pool set up, ready to go, and it does. It looks marvelous. It's incredible. His commentary on it, though, was they could stage anything if only we could stage playoff games there. That'd be nice.
That's nice.
That would be nice.
Well, here's the other thing. They can have water inside Lucas Oil Stadium so long as it's in a pool, but if there's like 2 drops of rain, forget about it because they didn't put in a drainage system, right?
Hey, do you think the roof will be open for the swim trials?
Also a good question, right? Can we get like a countdown of that, like roof open, roof not open, that kind of thing? We do have tickets to give away, by the way.
It looks
nice.
Awesome.
Prepare to qualify, right?
It looks awesome. All of Lucas Oil, the setup for it's
very
fantastic, and it's going to be a great event to be able to have the Olympic trials here for swimming. It's always special whenever the aquatics are involved in this city and the state, which has a great, rich history with it, and to be able to have that historic kind of launching point before everything hits the fan for Paris next month is really, really cool.
Man, going to Paris would be cool too, right?
Mm-hmm. We've both been, right? Not together, but respectively,
Correct.
we've both been. Yeah.
It's a great city.
Awesome.
I mean, that goes without saying, right? I mean, it's one of the most historic cities in the world. So we're going to give away tickets, I think, it's the 16th, correct?
Yes.
Now, does Greg want to opine on that, or is he trying to win tickets, Eddie?
You know, it's a great question.
Let's ask him.
I think you may be interested in tickets.
Hi, Greg. How are you?
I am good, Jake. How are you doing today?
Good. Are you calling in with an actual comment, or are you simply looking for tickets?
I wouldn't mind tickets, but just comment in general. I think you guys are doing a great job. So,
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
But you're really, Greg, you're looking for tickets, aren't you?
Well, you know what? I mean, I could, but I could just make comments.
Greg, can we play Get to Know Your Listener real quick? We've had a lot of success with this, and they've done research. Kids in particular love this segment. Can we do that with you real quick?
Absolutely.
Okay. Greg, if you don't mind me asking, how old a fella are you?
60 years old.
60, you said? 60?
Yeah, 60.
Okay. 60-year-old. So that puts you at around the high school graduating class of 82, somewhere in there. Is that right?
81. I was a young learner, so
okay.
81.
81. And that was, if you don't mind me asking, what was the mascot of your high school? Don't tell me the school, just the mascot name.
Warrior.
Okay. And so now when there was a big pool, was there not? Speaking of swimming, wasn't there a big pool on the east side when you were a kid?
Yeah.
Or did you go to Warren Central? You might be Whiteland. You could be somewhere else. Did you go to Warren?
Well, that's Warren Central. Yeah, we had a big pool, and you know what? I got in it for gym class, but that was about it.
Well, no, not the school, but wasn't there like what's the name of it? There was a huge like city pool, like a massive pool that was on the east side of Indianapolis. You know what I'm talking?
I was talking about this with my father-in-law.
Like a summertime place.
Yes.
Greg, help me out. What was the name of it? You know? Miramar? Was it Miramar? Was that the name of it?
Oh, Miramar. Oh, you're way back. Yeah, Miramar. We were members of Miramar.
Yeah, there you go. See, I knew, Greg. You sound like a country club kid. Okay, what about Boogie Mountain? Did you ever go to Boogie Mountain?
Boogie Mountain. Where was that? Southern Indiana?
No, Boogie Mountain was the water slide place that was over there off Shadeland, I think. It's now it's a battery place, but it was right there off the interstate on the east side, and it was somebody had the brilliant idea that they could do a concrete water slide place so long as they painted it with slick paint. And then everybody got raspberries and flipped over it and everything else, and they eventually closed. You never went to Boogie Mountain?
No, we always went to Putt-Putt. Mom and Dad would drive us to Putt-Putt.
Oh, Putt-Putt for the fun of it, baby. Let me tell you something. Take your mate and your brother, your date, or your mother, right?
That's it, man.
Putt-Putt
awesome.
for the fun of it. All right, Greg, do you want to go to this? We've entertained you long enough, or actually you've entertained us long enough, better way of saying it. Do you want to go to the U.S. swimming trials coming up on the 16th?
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
Are you able to use the tickets, and you're not actually going to scalp them or put them on eBay, right?
Oh, hell no. No.
Greg, what line of work are you in now, Greg?
I'm retired. So, yeah.
Congratulations.
What line of work were you in?
Well, I was in the medical industry and then pharmacy, but, yeah, we just decided to hang it up, for a few years, and that's it, yeah.
All right. Well, it's much appreciated. Greg, I'm going to put you on hold. Eddie's going to get your information.
He
and
actually
that's how
did
we're
want
gonna
to
do it.
comment about the swim trials.
Well, I asked him, and he said he just was calling to hang out. Greg, did you have a comment about the swim trials, or was that all just a smokescreen because you want the tickets?
No, I want the tickets. That'll be fine. I'm not going to scalp them, but yeah, that's fun. Just to go into Lucas Oil, I thought they were putting 2 pools in there. It's like, how are they doing that? If they put one in, that would be just awesome just to see that.
Well, here's the thing, Greg. Since you're going to see it, can you call back after the fact and just recap it for us?
Absolutely.
Your position within the company is that you are official pool correspondent. How's that?
Hey, I'm fine with that because that. Dope. Yeah.
All right. Now, okay, last question, Greg. When you were at Washington Square Mall hanging around trying to pick up chicks in 1981 at Warren, did you ever get a hot Sam pizza pretzel?
Oh, hell yes.
That's my man, Greg. All right, Greg, we'll put you on hold. Eddie will get your information. Tony, man, those things were awesome.
That is so weird. We were on vacation last week, and my father-in-law, Joe Neely, grew up on the east side his entire life, and he brought up Miramar Club. It used to be a spot on the east side, and that's one of those conversations where once it happens, you never think it's going to appear again because it's like, oh, okay, a little trip down memory lane. That was cool. And then here we are 4 days later.
So to Joe's point, they have half of Lucas Oil like they did with the All-Star Weekend. That's where the pool is that is circulating in pictures and videos today. And then like there's like this wall or something of like a, I don't know what the proper word is.
Divider.
Divider,
Okay.
yeah. And then on the other side is the warm-up pool.
Yep. Got to have your...
That's where they go after they
Now,
cool
there's
down.
no diving for this, right? This is just swimming, correct?
I think I don't know. I'd have to do research, but I think
all the branding is swimming trials. So I
have
think
always
it's
wondered
just
this.
swimming.
In the Summer Olympics, okay? Not winter. Winter's a whole different talk show. Summer Olympics. What is the event that if you just pulled some random jackass out of the crowd that the fewest number of people would be able to actually successfully do? It's got to be high platform dive, right?
Pommel horse.
Oh, come on, man. You just run on that thing and you hit a spring and you jump off of it, right?
Pommel horse, the one where you got the bars and you got to balance yourself and spin.
Okay,
everything
I mean,
like
that's
that.
not easy, right? The rings are tough, or like the gymnastic, the uneven bars would be tough. But in time, you could learn to do it, right? Think about the high platform dive. Like,
to successfully complete it or have a good score?
To successfully do it. Like, you got to go up there.
Sure.
You got to go up there and do like a handstand and spring yourself off of it and do a couple flips and go into the water. Are you kidding me? 90% of people, it would be fatal, right? It's got to be, honestly. I mean, now the high ski jump would be the one in the winter sport, I think, that most people would it would be an absolute disaster. You'd get up there, you'd be like, there's zero chance I'm doing this. None, zero, nada, right? But the high platform dive is the equivalent. Have you been to the natatorium, Jimmy?
I have, yes.
Have you looked at that top platform? They don't even allow people up there.
Yeah.
It's like roped off. They're like, don't even think about it. But yet, Mark Lindsay, Greg Louganis, whatever, you get up there, no problem, right? You get the general public up there, there's zero chance.
I'm insulting world-class divers here because I have no coordination to be able to flip or something. But, like, you could safely pencil dive from up there, right? Like, you could just go straight down, right?
Dude, I mean, you're talking if you just jump off.
Yeah, if you just went, just straight.
I think even that.
Just straight pencil right down, right into the pool.
I think even that, though, yes, you could, but I think it would be dangerous. I think there's a reason why they don't let the general public just do it.
What about the pentathlon? The modern pentathlon. I think that's how it's pronounced.
What else in the modern pentathlon?
Running, jumping, javelin, discus, and wrestling.
Okay, again, doing it all in one, fairly challenging, right? Javelin, come on, how hard is that? You go out, this spear, okay, great. What, discus? I mean, whatever. Who didn't throw the frisbee around? Fine, great, whatever. Let's move on. What's the next one? Running and jumping? Okay, sure, yeah, great.
I'm liable to break a leg or an ankle or worse trying to skateboard. Couldn't do that.
Yeah, the half pipe. But again, I mean, you got like 15-year-old kids in California doing it all over the place, and go past any like parking garage. They're running around doing it.
So real
you don't
quick,
see guys just walking around like, you know what I think I'm going to do today? I'm going to go backflip off a 30-foot platform.
Don't want to do an ollie off the stairs.
Trampoline? I don't know.
Trampoline, every kid's got one. Come on, no issue there.
I need to condense this real quick because we do this sometimes where it's probably my fault. We have a discussion, and then the parameters to which we're arguing get lost. Are we saying if you grab Joe Smith off the street, which one he is most successfully able to do? Or are you saying, given the time to train for it,
No.
It'd be easy to do.
I'm saying like just kind of both. I mean, it's two different answers, but I'm saying if you just like you're at the Olympics,
sure,
and they're like, you know,
crowd
when you're
participation,
you're at a
type thing?
Pacer game, they pull some guy out of the crowd that's got to hit a couple threes, right? You're at a Colts game, they pull some guy out of the crowd that's got or a gal out of the crowd that's got to field a punt. Can you imagine being at the diving qualifications, which somebody said they think it's in Knoxville this year. Can you imagine being at that and they're like, guess what? Jimmy Cook, congratulations. You're going to get a free year's worth of pizza. All you got to do is do a backflip from 35 feet high or whatever the hell it is. Zero chance.
I don't disagree with you on that aspect of it, but I feel like there's a ton of Olympic sports like that. Like if you had to go in a half pipe and do a 720,
but that's
I don't
winter,
think that
not
you're
summer.
What is?
What you're listening?
The skateboard thing is summer,
right?
right?
Skateboard.
Yeah.
When I think half pipe, I'm thinking of snow.
Well, it's because you were partial to the Winter Olympics, are you not?
What'd you say?
Didn't you say the other day you're partial to the Winter Olympics?
I'll tell you another one.
Curling. It's your
How about
favorite
this
Olympic
one?
sport.
How about this one? Water polo. Your feet can't touch the bottom. 90% of people drown by halftime. Forget about it, right? You want to talk about getting worn out?
I've always wanted to try water polo. Like not to actually like play it like in a league, but just like try it once. Just see what it's like.
Oh, it's exhausting, I'm sure. You're treading water the whole time. It's like half the time it's like half the feeling we have doing this show, right?
Do you think that everybody could do equestrian?
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, you got to position yourself when the little fella starts jumping over stuff, right?
Or could we all do fencing? I'm not saying we'd win at fencing.
Fencing,
we all do
come
fencing?
on, how hard is that? Whatever. It's like laser tag. You get a thing. It's, okay, here, okay, great, right, whatever, right? Hey, do me a favor. Wrap yourself in saran wrap. I'm going to get this sword and touch it a few times. Good. Hey, I win. Great, hard. Come on. There's no comparison.
Can we? Hey, listen.
100-meter dash. Okay, great. I mean, I got news for you. Like anybody can do the 100-meter dash. It might take 5 minutes.
Company-wide bulletin. If there's anybody listening that is ever at any level fenced, can we get you one round against Jake Query? I just want to see it happen.
Jake, I work at IEPY. When you jump off those high platforms, you have to turn on the bubbles for the people because otherwise it's like hitting concrete. Exactly. Right? Can you imagine somebody jumps off and they forgot to turn the bubbles on? Well, we got a problem here. I'm telling you, it's insane. It's total insanity. Now, the other thing, too, is like some of the longer swimming events. Do you know how hard that is to do?
Insanely difficult. Yeah.
I mean, like literally, it's the weirdest thing when you swim because you get out of breath and you're like, I'm in water. It's supposed to be relaxing.
Yep.
Throw on a little copper tone, get in the pool. You're supposed to be relaxing. A little Jimmy Buffett playing in the background. Before you know it, you're sucking wind, right? But I'm telling you that the high dive thing, zero chance.
I think I would fail miserably at sailing as well. There's not as much fatality risk there. Sailing, yeah.
That's an Olympic sport?
Yeah.
There's also sprint sailing.
Excuse me?
Sprint sailing.
What, do they just wait for like the gales of November and all of a sudden just head out to the Lake Superior? All right, sprint it. The wind is really whipping today.
They get a motor on the back and sprint sailing.
Yeah, I mean, seriously. That's cheating, right? I think it's Dennis the Menace joining us. Dennis, what's up?
Yeah, you got that right. That's exactly what I was when I was a kid, Jake.
Hell yeah, I knew it. All Dennis's.
I didn't get a chance to call in the first part of May because you always have May Day when you would tell stories. I want to tell you something because Parnelli Jones died. My father, who used to work for a major airline back in the late 70s and early 80s, hosted a suite in Turn 2 at the IMS Speedway, right there where they came in. It was so freaking cool, dude, that I would actually cut school and go over to the track while he was hospitality there and watch these cars. And this goes back to the days of Roger McCluskey, Lloyd Ruby, Tom Steva, all those guys when I grew up as a teenager.
Joe Leonard, one of them that drove for Parnelli, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it was so awesome just to hear him come out of 1 through 2, where you had the turbo, you had the Offenhausers and the Cosworths coming through, and it was just fantastic just to listen to those.
So Dennis, what year did you graduate from high school?
82.
82. Okay, so you would have been too young. Well, probably too young. You'd have been a real wee lad to remember the turbine engine, right? I mean, I did not. That was obviously, 60, 67, 68. Like, you don't remember that, right?
I do remember that because when I was 5, 6, when Allensburg won it, my father would take me and we'd sit in the paddock area, and I remember the Johnny Lightning special.
Well, yeah, you had to have loved it. Right in your wheelhouse, right?
Absolutely. I grew up a mile from the track.
So, Dennis,
So,
what
during
about
the
this
month-
question?
Yeah.
Which do you think you could have more successfully done at the age of 20? Gotten in one of those cars and driven a lap at speed around the speedway, or gone over to a diving facility and done a backflip off of one of the top platforms?
The first one by far.
You'd have been in serious trouble, right, if you tried the second one, I'm telling you. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the appreciation for Parnelli as well. And, again, for Mario Andretti to join us and talk about that at the top of the hour, it's been a good hour. But, guys, I'm telling you, that high dive, zero chance. You can bet on this. You can bet on if I get up there, I'm probably not trying to do a dive off of it. And as far as other safe bets, Jimmy will have that next.
Diamonds Direct has done it again.
way. This is how I win.
Today's plays of the day, all in the MLB. Starting off, we'll take the Tampa Bay Rays to win on the money line over the Miami Marlins. A little bit later tonight, we'll also take the Baltimore Orioles to win on the money line over the Toronto Blue Jays. Later still, give me the New York Yankees to win on the money line over the Minnesota Twins. And one prop bet for you, Pirates sensation Paul Skeens on the mound tonight as the Pirates host the Dodgers. Give me over 6.5 strikeouts thrown for Paul Skeens. Eddie, any bets for you?
No, sir.
All right, those are your plays of the day.
By the way, I had forgotten about this. Talking about the diving likelihood of people doing it. Hey, Jake, I think NBC or another network tried, I think it was ABC actually, tried the platform diving concept with has-been celebrities. They trucked the late Louis Anderson out there. The results were predictable. Splash was the name of the show. I remember this. They had A.J. McCarron's girlfriend who had just become famous when Brent Musburger was like oogling over her during an Alabama game.
Wasn't
she one of them.
like Miss America or something?
I think that's right. Yeah, she was one of them. They just wanted her in a bathing suit. Cream was one of them. And then they had Louis Anderson. And I shouldn't laugh at this. There was a situation where Louis did his dive. It was more of like a can opener. And then couldn't get out of the water. And I think Louis forgot to tell them during the application process that Louis didn't swim. And they basically had to get a huge net and fish Louis out of the water. It was a very ugly scene. And I'm surprised.
Kareem was also a part of it.
That's what I said. Kareem was on there.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm surprised that that somehow in the editing process they decided they were like, let the part where Louis Anderson almost drowns, leave that in. Like you would think that probably would have made the cutting room floor at some point. But
just shows that he's just like some normal citizens, Jake.
Yeah, except for that, like his claim to fame was that he was a former Family Feud host, and then he was flailing around in the water. I mean, literally, it was like terrible. Kids were shrieking. I think it was awful. Like he almost drowned in the water, and they're like, but they decided because those shows are filmed like 3 months before they air, right, and literally they're like, you know what? Let's just leave that part in. The part where Louis almost dies, that was good TV. Let's leave that in there. Poor guy. Who else? Does it list what other has-been celebrities were on said show?
Ndamukong Suh.
Okay.
I don't know if that's too...
His last name is what Louis Anderson decided to do, the producers, probably. Okay, what else?
A couple, a former soccer player or two, a former reality TV star. Nobody that jumps out necessarily for me. I don't know if you want to take a glance.
What about a Ghostbuster? Because J&B just walked in with a Ghostbuster. They were in the Ghostbusters were in the 500 Festival Parade, by the way. Did you have to call the Ghostbusters, John?
Break yet? Are you through it? Is this?
What's that?
Okay, this is Josh right here, by the way. He's going to go on next door here next. Come here, Josh.
He's calling him like he's a dog. He's a Ghostbuster. He's not a dog.
Come over here now. Come on.
There's an invisible man sleeping in your bed.
That's right.
Who are you going to call?
You're going to call us, Circle City Ghostbusters.
Circle City Ghostbusters. They're going to go on next door here, opposite of me here.
That is spectacular.
Holy, look at this in here. Look at you guys.
I'm telling you, these guys, you guys were in the 500 Festival Parade, right?
We were.
Correct.
It was awesome. Now, when did this come about, the Circle City Ghostbusters?
About 10 years ago. We're Indy's only paranormal investigation and elimination team in the Indianapolis area. Been around for 10 years. We're actually going to come on not to talk about our paranormal work, but about our charity work, because we're also a 501c3 charity.
Okay.
About how we help out local Indianapolis charities.
Where do you get the get-up, by the way?
I had one of those.
It's pretty impressive.
But mine was a catheter.
That is a catheter.
Is it really? Is
yes.
it connected to your wiener?
Okay.
All right.
But it could be.
What's the
That's
benefit of
paranormal in its own
the
right.
elbow pads?
Sometimes you got to drop kick a ghost, like Slimer over here. Maybe you guys can hear him. He's very quiet.
What is that happening there?
It's one of the ghosts, man. It's one of the. He slimed me, right?
This is Slimer.
Do you guys ever get slimed?
Every day.
It gets all over, everywhere.
Now I'm just curious. So you're going around and you're busting ghosts, right? Just out of curiosity, because I am curious about this. I thought about this during the parade. The get-up itself. How's that go with the ladies?
Most of us are married already.
Okay, well that's okay.
We got to push them away. Yeah, sorry. Got to show the ring.
That's good. There you go. Yeah, the ring is the only way to ward off all the ladies, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, we're a
The
bunch
hat's
of
the hat's cool, by the way.
working class slobs.
I like that.
You think it's all glamorous, but we're technically just supernatural janitors.
Okay, fair enough. It's pretty cool, man.
That's
the
awesome.
The outfit is good.
Yeah.
Way to go, fellas.
All right,
Way to
there we go. Circle City Ghostbusters, right?
So give you guys
501
a card before we leave?
C3. Oh, we got cards and everything.
Yeah, give us a call.
Also handy in case you guys are hanging out over at the old Central State location, probably, right? The Paranormal.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week. No job is too big. No fee is too big. We're ready to believe you.
There you go. Love it. Circle City Ghostbusters. That is so in your wheelhouse, John. It's not even funny. John's walking around in a Rax T-shirt, and the Ghostbusters are following him around.
Come on now, Ghostbusters.
How about that? John, what's up on the big program next?
We're going to go Greene County on Greene County. Kip Fugris, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, from Linton for Evansville. They're in the Super Regional. And Matt Gay is going to talk about the type of year he had last year, which was not a great type of year he had last year. So that and more coming up here after 3.
All right, sounds good. John's up next. Thanks again to Mario Andretti, by the way, Joel Erickson on the program today as well, and Josh Downs. All of those available, Eddie, on the podcast center, correct?
Yep, 1075thefan.com.
We're back with you at noon tomorrow.
If you're talking about it.